Welcome to Fanfiction Audiobook. Marvel, I'm just the Supreme Master's sidekick. Chapter 21 New forces intervene. Hearing the masked man's slightly mocking tone in his voice, the fake Rhodes became somewhat exasperated. He never expected that the masked man would also participate in Qin Wuying's operation. In fact, even Qin Wuying himself did not expect this. Your appearance came at just the right time, perfectly timed. Qin Wuying breathed a sigh of relief after learning that the masked man had recorded the entire process using a surveillance system. Of course, the protagonist always makes his appearance at the most crucial moment. What? I'm the main character in this story, okay. What's wrong with this guy wearing the mask? He seems inexplicably arrogant. Can you guys stop arguing about such trivial things? At that moment, Lucy Stark's voice came through the communication device again. A group of unidentified people are heading towards you. Unidentified? Qin Wuying assumed a fighting stance. How did they get into Stark Tower? What about the security system? These people seem to be able to just swipe their cards to come in, but our system can't recognize them. Things seem to be getting more and more chaotic, leaving Qin Wuying somewhat confused. First, there was Ral Stark, whom I had no recollection of, and then there was the still active Ten Rings gang. Now even the Skrulls, such a troublesome problem, have emerged. So, who was it that just broke into the building? Hello, Mr. Qin. A simple and clear greeting interrupted Qin Wuying's train of thought. Several men in suits and ties, walking briskly, turned into the corridor where they were. The person at the front looked somewhat familiar, but I couldn't quite place their name. Qin Wuying conjured an energy sword in his hand and aimed it at the uninvited guests. Oh, Mr. Qin. Please calm down. The man in the suit who was leading the group raised his hands in a gesture of surrender and slowly walked towards Qin Wuying. Who are you? What are you doing here? He did not immediately lower the raised sword, remaining vigilant. Sir, I am Agent Coulson. The man in the suit continued to hold up one hand while reaching into his jacket pocket with the other and handing over a business card. I belong to the Strategic Homeland Defense, Attack and Logistics Agency. Qin Wuying couldn't help but raise her eyebrows and stare intently at the introduction on the business card. What Social Security Bureau? To put it simply, you can also call us SHIELD. You should have said so earlier, Qin Wuying said, putting away his energy sword and patting Coulson on the shoulder. Your organization's name is as long as some online novels. Someone who doesn't know better might think you're a reading platform. Coulson gave a cryptic smile. We're already working on improving. Then, the agent waved his right hand, and his men rushed forward and lifted the scroll up. Take him away, we still have many questions to ask him. Seeing this, Qin Wuying immediately activated a magic field, trapping the agents inside. What do you mean by this, Mr. Qin? I don't think you have the right to do this. This is Stark Industries. I must remind you, going against SHIELD will not end well. I'm not someone to be trifled with either. With a slight manipulation, Qin Wuying sent several SHIELD agents flying up and down in the energy field. Of course, the fake Rhodes also flew up inside. The masked man and Lucy behind the surveillance camera were completely dumbfounded. A few minutes later, Qin Wuying finally put all of them down. Oh my Jesus and God! I feel like I'm about to throw up. Coulson staggered to his feet, leaning against the wall of the corridor, and began to dry heave. Hey, I suggest you watch your mouth, or I'm going to kick your ass. Qin Wuying decided to follow Coulson's translation style. Alright, Mr. Qin, you asked for this. You just wait. Coulson spat and helped the people around him up one by one. The SHIELD agents, supporting each other, left the scene in a daze. Ugh, my legs hurt so much. Several groans suddenly came from the floor. Qin Wuying then remembered that there was still a Skrull who hadn't been dealt with. Looking at the fake Rhodes, whose body was blackened by smoke, he shook his head helplessly and used magic to make the other person float up. Signal. The prisoner in the swimming pool. Indeed, it is I. A few minutes later, after exchanging the password, Qin Wuying threw the fake Rhodes onto the floor of the isolation room in front of Lucy. Lucy looked at the green alien in front of her through the glass with a sense of disbelief. I don't know when it started, but they've somehow ended up living among us. My father has given me orders to temporarily take over as Minister of Security. After locking up the fake Rhodes, Lucy discussed personnel changes with Qin Wuying in the office. That's good. But I don't have that much time to manage the security department. That's bad. Is your language system broken? Lucy rolled her eyes at Qin Wuying. I'm just a junior staff member, I don't know what to say. That won't be the case starting today. What? Qin Wuying clutched her head in frustration. Even if I overstepped my authority a bit, shouldn't I have made significant contributions? Don't fire me. Seeing Qin Wuying's somewhat silly look, Lucy couldn't help but laugh out loud. From today onwards, you are the deputy minister. Me. Qin Wuying pointed to her face with her index finger. The sudden and massive promotion left him somewhat bewildered. However, this is also a good thing. With actual authority, it will be much easier for him to investigate any issues that interest him. Yes, miss. Qin Wuying placed her hands on her chest, making a knightly salute. All right, I have to work, stop arguing. Lucy waved her hand, telling Qin Wuying to hurry up and leave. However, Qin Wuying caught a glimpse of a barely perceptible smile on her lips out of the corner of his eye. Through mutual trust and cooperation, the two successfully exposed the high-ranking Skrulls, which deepened their dependence on each other. Afterwards, Qin Wuying stayed at the company until night and did not receive any other abnormal reports. Perhaps seeing what happened to the fake roads, the remaining Skrulls who were lurking around became more cautious. Needless to say, I keep it in check. She was all bad nevertheless. Qin Wuying, who was getting off work in a good mood, hummed a song as she swiped her card at the door lock. Hey? No matter how many times I refresh, there's no response. Qin Wuying tried to push gently. The door opened so gently, as if it had never been locked at all. Someone has intruded? Qin Wuying secretly gathered his magical power in his palm and tiptoed in the darkness. There seemed to be someone standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling window in the living room. Speak, or I'll attack you. Are you always in such a hurry, Mr. Qin? Why don't you turn on the light first, and we can sit down and talk? You trespassed into my home, and you dare to claim you're just chatting. Fuck you, if you just turned on the light, all this trouble would be gone. Although Qin Wuying was puzzled, he still moved his finger and remotely pressed the switch for the ceiling light. Chapter 22 The Plan of Ma and Number 039, M. Factman. A round, black head, a coat, and his signature monocle. Without a doubt, you are a ruthless pirate. How do you look like a pirate? Holy crap! Hearing Qin Wuying address him as a pirate, the man called pirate seemed a little angry. Isn't that right? Then you must be Mama's fuck man. Qin Wuying continued to deliver nonsensical attacks with a blank expression. What kind of hero? The man put his hand to his ear, unable to believe that someone would name someone like that. All right, Nick Fury, what are you trying to do? Seeing that the man had no sense of humor at this moment, Qin Wuying had no choice but to reveal his true identity. How the hell do you know who I am? Even though the other person said his name correctly, Nick Fury wasn't happy at all. Instead, his face was full of confusion. Don't worry about that, I have plenty of methods and strength. Qin Wuying calmly locked the door, walked into the kitchen, and poured himself a cup of hot coffee. Without a doubt, they're here because of Agent Coulson. After all, they've made things so difficult for the members of SHIELD. As director, Nick Fury is now here to get revenge. Hey, can you stop ignoring me? I'm thirsty too. Seeing Qin Wuying drinking his coffee without a care, Nick Fury felt a surge of anger. To create an air of mystery, he sneaked in before the end of the workday and stood by the floor-to-ceiling window. However, Qin Wuying was working overtime today, so he stood there for 2 hours for nothing. Here you go. The cup is in the kitchen, find it yourself. Qin Wuying picked up a tea bag from the coffee table and casually tossed it behind him. Do you know I'm Nick Fury, the director of SHIELD? How dare you be so rude to me? Seeing Qin Wuying's nonchalant attitude, Nick Fury had no choice but to swallow his anger and get some hot water for her to soak in. Anyone else with that kind of arrogance would have been riddled with bullets long ago. But Qin Wuying, who possessed important intelligence and powerful magic, was not worried about his personal safety at all. Oh, I forgot to mention, please have a seat. How come you're even less likable than one of the rich kids I know? Nick Fury plopped down on the sofa and couldn't help but let out an "oh," clearly exhausted. As for the young Master Fury mentioned, Qin Wuying guessed it was Tony Stark. However, he doesn't plan to bring it up for the time being. He was more curious to know what the director of SHIELD wanted to see him about. Let me be frank, why did you lay a hand on my men? His opening remarks were aggressive, clearly indicating Fury's dissatisfaction. They broke the rules and threatened me, so I had to teach them a lesson, Qin Wuying shrugged. Forget it, let's just say they brought it on themselves. Fury pulled a document from inside his jacket and placed it between the two men. I am formally inviting you to join SHIELD. No interest, Qin Wuying replied outright. If he had to choose a faction, he would prefer Camartage. Besides that, he almost never wanted to take sides with anyone. Don't you want to hear what the benefits are? In no mood. You son of a bitch. Fury was about to swear, but he forced himself to hold back. I really don't understand how anyone could so readily refuse a great organization like SHIELD, which offers excellent benefits and offers exciting and engaging work. Listen, about the Skrulls. A few seconds later, Nick Fury decided to bring up another topic that Qin Wuying was interested in. How is it? Can you leave this to me? You all don't need to worry about it. What? You dare make such a request? Qin Wuying almost spat out the coffee she had just drunk. If you hadn't been so close to and indulgent towards the Skrulls, the secret invasion wouldn't have happened. Moreover, judging from the degree of distortion and chaos in this world, the situation may be even more serious than imagined. However, Qin Wuying had a sudden inspiration. If you can provide a list of Skrulls within Stark Industries, I'll consider making a deal with you. Nick Fury's eyes widened, thinking to himself that this kid was really asking for an exorbitant amount. Mr. Qin, let me make this clear, my principle is equivalent exchange. I know. Give me the list, and I'll help you find Tony Stark and persuade him to join the Avengers. That sounds tempting. Wait. Holy crap. How do you know about the Avengers? The name of a top-secret file that only exists on a personal hard drive has now been revealed by an outsider. Seeing Fury's reaction, Qin Wuying knew that his guess was correct. At this point in time, Iron Man was still missing, let alone the formation of the Avengers. Nick Fury must be very anxious, he needs a superhero team to fight off all sorts of external threats. I'm a sorcerer, mind reading isn't that easy for me. Okay, that makes sense. Do you really think you can find Tony? I'm the Deputy Chief of Security at Stark Industries, how could I not find him? Qin Wuying proudly announced his position. The two then discussed the various details of the collaboration until both were satisfied. Oh dear, let's check if the Book of Speth has been updated. Qin Wuying chuckled to himself as he studied the latest page of the position-swapping spell. He had no mind-reading abilities whatsoever, it was all just a trick to fool Nick Fury, and to his surprise, the man actually believed it. Fortunately, Fury didn't test him, otherwise things would have been a bit troublesome. I am you, and you are me. Silently reciting the key points written in the book, Qin Wuying stared at the teddy bear on the bed. Change. A flash of blue light appeared, and the little bear stood on the floor in the same position Qin Wuying had just been in. Qin Wuying, like the little bear from before, lay on the headboard. For some reason, Qin Wuying always felt that the magic book written by Davist was as if it were tailor-made for him. They often provide exactly what they need. After a brief practice session, he inserted the USB drive that Fury had left behind into the computer. Clicking on one of the tables will bring up a dense list of names and job titles. I couldn't sleep that night. Miss, I've tidied it up for you. The next morning, Qin Wuying, who had just arrived at the company, handed the list of people who needed to be dismissed to Lucy. As promised by Nick Fury, these Skrulls will be sent to a centralized settlement before being repatriated to space. Lucy blinked and reached out to poke Qin Wuying's face. Whoa! What are you doing? Qin Wuying was startled. You keep telling me to get some rest, but you still have those dark circles under your eyes. It's all because of working late into the night. Qin Wuying never expected that coming to another world would mean having to work overtime so often. Would you mind working overtime a bit more? The next second, Lucy uttered a hellish request. Lucy grabbed Qin Wuying's tie, making him bend down. I have intelligence that Obadiah Stanislav, a member of the board of directors, seems to have connections with the Ten Rings. Go and investigate. Chapter 23 The Top Arms Dealer. Damn it! How many days has it been and it still hasn't been finished? Tony Stark did all this work in a cave. Inside the Ark laboratory, an angry bald man was venting his frustrations on his subordinates. Mr. Stanislav, please understand, we are not geniuses like Tony Stark. The person in charge of the research answered calmly. As a core member of the Ark experiment, he was used to Stanislav's attitude, so he wasn't surprised. Humph, you bunch of good-for-nothings are completely unreliable. A few days ago, Stanislav heard about the fake roads. What shocked him most was that the fake roads could autonomously equip and use armor like the Alloy Might King. Moreover, he was completely kept in the dark and knew nothing about Alloy Might King. Damn it, a fake is wearing real armor. I've worked diligently here for so many years, and he still won't share his skills with me. Back in his office, Stanislav grew angrier the more he thought about it. For many years, he has controlled Stark Industries' weapons and arms industry and wielded considerable influence on the board of directors. After Tony successfully escaped, it was he who calmed the media and the board of directors. However, Tony Stark has never had access to core information about reactor technology. No matter how many times he tried, the system would reject him. But that Skrull who impersonated Rhodes was able to get almost identical replicas. Mr. Stanislav, will your scheduled meeting still take place tonight? The female secretary pushed open the door and walked in. Seeing the newspaper scraps scattered all over the floor, she knew that her boss must have just been furious. Meeting? What's the point? Can it get me to build the Iron Man suit? Get out. Stanislav took the schedule from his secretary, marked it with a few big X's, and sent the secretary out. Regardless, he was determined to achieve his goal. The Stark family must pay the price for their arrogance. Stanislav gulped down several large mouthfuls of strong liquor. A bold idea had already formed in his mind. Just then, a series of regular knocks sounded on the door. Stannis was so startled he almost fell off his chair. "Why is it you again?" He was a little angry when he saw his female secretary return. "I'm sorry, Mr. Stanislav, but there are some contract documents that require your personal review. This is so annoying." Despite his reluctance to spend time on this kind of work, Stanislav had no choice but to go. Of course, all these so-called contract issues were arranged by Qin Wuying. He knew in advance that the female secretary had long disliked Stanislavski's personality, but was unable to resist due to work reasons. Therefore, Qin Wuying pulled his secretary to his side with almost no effort. Taking advantage of the moment when his target left the office, he used his ability to pass through the wall from the next room and sat down in Stanislavski's boss's chair. A USB drive with multiple layers of encryption was inserted into Stannis's computer. Keyword search in progress. The screen displays 7 red characters, with a white progress bar below them. As the progress increased, the blurry video in the center of the field of vision became clearer and clearer. The background is an orange-red flag with 10 interlocking circles printed on it. Qin Wuying recognized it. It was the symbol of the 10 Commandments gang. On the chair in the center, there was a man whose head was covered by a cloth bag. On both sides stood members of the 10 Commandments gang, armed with rifles and submachine guns. "Listen, arms dealer Stanislav, look who the hell is this?" The 10 Commandments member next to the chair yanked the cloth bag off. Tony Stark appeared on camera, his clothes tattered and his face covered in injuries. "You didn't tell us he was the one we were going to kill. You have to pay a much higher price." Good heavens, so it was all Stanislav's doing all along. In addition to the video, Qin Wuying also discovered a large number of illegal transaction records on the computer. These included weapons explicitly prohibited by the government, as well as illegal drugs and serums still in the experimental stage. Okay, copy with one click. These things alone are enough to put him in jail for life. Meanwhile, Stanislav, completely unaware of the situation, is currently troubled by his difficult client. "I've taken care of things here, you can leave now." After completing the data copy, Qin Wuying notified his female secretary via the communication terminal. The negotiations quickly reached a dead end, and the female secretary suggested continuing at a later date before seeing the clients off. As for the clients who refused to sign the contract no matter what, they were all actors that Qin Wuying had hired at great expense. The financial support was entirely provided by Lucy Stark. "If this money doesn't work, you'll be working here illegally for the rest of your life." Recalling Lucy's expression, Qin Wuying still felt a little scared. When the conversation turns to company and work-related topics, the usually friendly young lady becomes particularly strict and domineering. However, only Qin Wuying had ever seen this kind side of him. "Here, we've got the evidence." Qin Wuying proudly tossed the USB drive onto Lucy's desk. "I wasn't lying, was I? It's super fast." Lucy didn't speak, but instead browsed through the contents on the computer. "How terrifying, our world's #1 arms dealer. Well done, Mr. Qin." Once everything was confirmed to be in order, Lucy contacted Agent Coulson and devised a plan to capture Stanislav that night. After Qin Wuying and Nick Fury reached an agreement, SHIELD resumed its relatively friendly attitude towards Stark Industries. For the rest of the afternoon, the security department spent working with external agents to set up ambushes and exchange details. One group is ready. Group 2 is ready. Operation begins. At 18 p.m., the bombs placed outside Stanislav's office and residence detonated simultaneously. "Charge in! Charge in! Proceed according to plan." 2 teams rushed into 2 different locations, one team responsible for capturing the suspect alive, and the other team responsible for collecting more evidence. One report stated that no abnormalities were found in the residence. The second team reports that no trace of Stannis has been found. What's going on? The agents sensed something was wrong even through the communication system. According to the information provided by his secretary, Stanislav should have just finished dinner and returned to his office. Or did he go somewhere else entirely? District 16. He must be in District 16. Qin Wuying, who was traveling with Group 2, turned around upon hearing the sound and saw a blonde beauty standing behind them. "Are you Miss Pepper?" You know me." "That's not important, we have other things to discuss later." Qin Wuying knew that Pepper was Tony Stark's closest confidant and might know Tony's whereabouts. "Why? What's in District 16? Agent Coulson asked hastily, eager to complete the mission. "I overheard something like Stanislavski is secretly building some kind of weapon in District 16. Upon hearing this, Qin Wuying vaguely realized something. "No, the door is locked." The group rushed to the entrance of District 16, but were unable to enter immediately. Seeing this, Coulson pulled out a tiny device and was about to stick it onto the handle. No need, I'll do it. Qin Wuying reached out to stop Carlson. Chapter 24 Iron Tyrant? Iron King 8. After all, using explosive devices would make too much noise. How did you know it was for explosives? Although Carlson was somewhat surprised, he thought Qin Wuying's words made sense. If it were a mage, they would surely have a more ingenious way to break down the door. Qin Wuying aimed his palm at the door lock, took a deep breath, and then whoosh, a small burst of energy shot out from the palm in an instant. Boom! The iron gate of District 16 tilted backward, causing a huge tremor. In an instant, everyone's eyes turned to the mage who had just given his assurance. Hee hee. Qin Wuying scratched his head, trying to cover his embarrassment with a silly laugh. Sometimes I do go a little too far, you know. Carlson shook his head helplessly, made a forward gesture, and several SHIELD agents immediately followed behind. Hey, don't panic. It's dangerous. Qin Wuying thought of scenes she had seen in movies before and suddenly felt a sense of unease. If Tony Stark isn't here, then who would be stopping Stanislav? After standing there stunned for a few seconds, Qin Wuying suddenly realized wasn't that him. He quickly caught up with the team of agents and broke into the interior of District 16. The group is now advancing slowly in a certain formation. The sound of machinery in motion came from deep within the area. What do you think it could be? A robot? An agent, holding a pistol and pointing it at the darkness, couldn't help but ask a question. The atmosphere was so tense for those 2 minutes, no one spoke, which made everyone nervous. They're much more troublesome than robots, I suggest you don't go ahead of me. Qin Wuying's answer made team leader Carlson's heart tighten. If Stanislav really did develop a secret weapon in District 16 that wasn't part of the intelligence, then they'd probably have a hard time dealing with it. Carlson remained on high alert, thoroughly searching every possible location where enemies might appear. They even go after the ceiling. Sir, do we really need to aim there? What do you know? What if they actually fall from the sky? Gradually, they got closer and closer to the place emitting the eerie mechanical sound. The lighting was dim, and many metal chains hanging down from above blocked the view ahead. As a well-trained agent, Carlson seemed to be able to smell danger less than half a meter away. Buzz! A pair of eyes emitting a cold white light lit up in front of Carlson. It's really on their faces, this intuition is just too sharp. Fire! Fire now! Whoosh! Carlson instinctively gripped his pistol and pulled the trigger. But the next second he was slapped away by the huge and hard mechanical arm and crashed to the ground unconscious. Bang 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 bang! Bang 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 bang! In the confined space, the crisp sound of bullets hitting metal could be heard everywhere. Wow, this must be a joke. A colossal object slowly emerged from behind the metal chains. That's right, it was Stanislav Stein who designed the prototype of the Ironmonger using the Mark I. But that doesn't make sense. Where would you find a suitable reactor? Qin Wuying stared intently at Tai Ba Wang's chest. That was the thing he had brought back from the Ten Rings gang's territory. Damn it, I've ended up doing you a favor, you bastard. Under the suppressive fire, several agents had been forced to retreat and were unable to fight back from behind cover. Mr. Qin, what exactly are you doing? Hurry up, Mr. Qin. Without your magic, how are we supposed to fight against the alloy armor? Qin Wuying smiled faintly, it's simple, I'll finish him off, won't I? You guys hurry up and leave. Having said that, he no longer concealed his aura, and his true strength was finally revealed. What kind of idiotic light technology? Ha 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 ha. Stanislaw laughed loudly when he saw the blue magic circle in Qin Wuying's hand. You cowardly turtle who only knows how to hide in your shell, dare to come to the rooftop and fight me. Who the hell are you calling a bastard? Mine's an Iron Monarch. Seeing that he had successfully provoked Stanislavski, Qin Wuying was secretly pleased. He then broke through the window and flew to the rooftop platform. As long as the space is open enough, spatial abilities can be fully utilized. Let me show you how powerful my firepower is. A light machine gun and a rocket launcher were raised from the Ironmonger's 2 shoulders. Ha, boring. Qin Wuying scoffed. Villains like Stanislavski are no longer enough. Kamui. The moment the bullets and missiles made contact with him, his body went into ethereal form. Boom. A large crater was punched out behind Qin Wuying. How is this possible? How could it miss? Try this one. Stanislav focused all his kinetic energy into his arms and slammed them down like a wild gorilla. The fist passed right through Qin Wuying from head to toe, slamming into the ground. This completely terrified Stanislav. He couldn't hit her with either close-range or long-range attacks. What should he do? Is it my turn now? Hey? Stanislav, whose brain was overloaded, actually nodded. Knowing full well how evil Stanislavski was in the original work, Qin Wuying would absolutely not show any mercy now. Iron Man still needs to push the Ironmonger into the reactor to defeat his opponent. Qin Wuying, on the other hand, had no need for it at all. Hey, you bastard, what are you looking at? In a second, he disappeared from Stanislav's sight. I'm not an iron turtle. Hey This provocation brought Stannis back to his senses. He felt Qin Wuying riding on his back, so he shook his body desperately. Qin Wuying grabbed the vision sensor with force and pulled it out by the roots. Stannis's screen went completely black, and he couldn't see anything. Warning! Warning! Optical sensor malfunction. The system issued an urgent alert, which made Stannis extremely anxious and threw him into a panic. Seeing the Iron Monarch struggling with its claws outstretched, Qin Wuying couldn't help but think of some famous monsters. A monk should have some imagination and associative thinking skills. Perfect timing to try out the move I just thought of. Bright blue energy gathers again in the palm of the hand, then opens into a ring shape. Take this. 8-point light wheel. Qin Wuying threw an energy ring from his left hand, and the powerful cutting force sawed off Iron Monarch's left arm. Stannis let out a heart-wrenching scream. What? That damned super beast dares to pretend it can feel pain. Immediately afterwards, Qin Wuying's right hand also hurled out a light wheel, this time dislocating Iron Overlord's right leg. The enemy had completely lost the ability to resist and stopped shouting. Perhaps he suddenly fainted. Don't be afraid, Qin Wuying turned her head and looked at the SHIELD agents who had just arrived. They were all stunned by the brutal scene. You're not super beasts. Chapter 25 3-Fact Agent. How are you feeling? Are you feeling better now? Qin Wuying sat by the hospital bed and placed a basket of fresh fruit on the bedside table. At this moment, Coulson lay on his back with multiple fractures throughout his body, completely unable to move. This was only from one punch from the Ironmonger armor. Thank you, Mr. Qin, for saving our lives. Coulson struggled to open and close his lips, managing to make a sound through his teeth. He heard the whole story from his colleagues and was deeply impressed by Qin Wuying's amputation of his limbs. Excuse me, I have a phone call coming in, I have to leave now. Before they could exchange more than a few words, Qin Wuying's communication device started buzzing. The screen displayed, caller ID, Mayor Fuck Hero. Mr. Qin, would you be interested in joining? Beep, beep, beep. Qin Wuying hung up immediately upon hearing Nick Fury's opening line. However, not long after, the communication device rang again. No matter how many times Qin Wuying ignored him, Nick Fury persisted in calling. What exactly do you want? I've already told you I won't join. Temporary, temporary. Fury quickly uttered a few words on the other end, afraid that the call would be disconnected again. The next mission is dangerous, so I'm sending out my 2 strongest secret agents. What does that have to do with me? I need you to keep them in check, these 2 are being disobedient. If they were face to face now, Qin Wuying would really want to roll his eyes at Nick Fury. Your subordinates are disobedient, so you come to me, an outsider? Qin Wuying had long thought this guy was nonsensical, and now it seemed he was right. But tell me the names of those 2 agents. You still haven't said yes. I have a strange quirk, if I see a name I like, I'm more likely to say yes. Fury was noticeably silent for several seconds on the other end of the phone. Okay, it's Romanoff and Clint. Fury has been traveling the world for many years and has heard of and seen all sorts of eccentric people. Compared to ruthless scientists and psychologically twisted murderers, Qin Wuying's hobby is perfectly normal. What a wonderful name. I'll join. To complete the repair of this timeline, it's essential to get to know the main storyline superheroes as soon as possible. Black Widow and Hawkeye are 2 essential members of the team. After the brief communication ended, Qin Wuying walked out of the hospital. A light drizzle was falling outside. A black sports car drifted over and came to an abrupt stop in front of Qin Wuying. Get in the car. The driver's side window slowly rolled down, and a blonde woman wearing sunglasses turned her head. Wait, wait, Qin Wuying waved his hands repeatedly, I'm not that kind of person. The beautiful woman took off her sunglasses, and the way she looked at him was as if he were an idiot. I'm Nick Fury's man, you idiot. Qin Wuying didn't speak, opened the car door and sat in the passenger seat, followed by several minutes of silence. Why didn't you say so sooner? Hello? May I ask your name? Finally unable to hold back any longer, Qin Wuying recalled scenes from movies she had seen, trying to break the awkward atmosphere. Sasha. The other party still only responded with a single, cold word. The sports car had been driving on the highway for almost an hour, and neither of them had spoken another word. Qin Wuying usually suffers from motion sickness, but today she did not feel any discomfort. Hey? Isn't this exactly the topic we should be discussing? The citrus scent in the car is so nice, it instantly cured my motion sickness. Where did it come from? It's the perfume I'm wearing, you pervert. Oh no, this has really killed the conversation. Can anyone tell me how to properly get along with women? Before long, the vehicle slowed down and drove down the ramp into the underground. There seemed to be only 2 cars in many of the parking spaces. One of them was the car they were riding in, while the other car, of the same model, was already parked. Sasha cranked the steering wheel and executed a super 360 degrees golden spin, maneuvering the car perfectly into one of the parking spaces. Qin Wuying, who hadn't felt dizzy the whole way, almost vomited in the last few seconds. We've arrived. This is a temporary base for SHIELD. Looking around, there was cement and construction materials everywhere. It was an unfinished underground parking garage. Is SHIELD facing a tight budget? Qin Wuying scratched his head, feeling that using such a place as a base was too perfunctory and unsafe. Try taking 2 steps forward. Oh? Okay. The other party suddenly took the initiative to strike up a conversation, and Qin Wuying quickly complied, hoping to repair the goodwill level. Ouch! That hurts. However, as soon as he took a step, his head hit the air. Sasha gave a triumphant smile, then took out her ID card from her pocket and waved it in the air a few times. The scene then changed instantly. The cracked lime walls have been transformed into exquisite modern-style wallpaper. The cheap light bulbs that used to flicker on the ceiling have now been replaced by more technologically advanced hallway lights. Qin Wuying's path was blocked by a tightly closed door. Qin Wuying touched the small bump on her forehead. She must have bumped into the door earlier. This is S.H.I.E.L.D.S holographic technology, you idiots. Sasha swiped her ID card again to open the door and led Qin Wuying into the base. The sound of pop music reached my ears first. 2 agents dressed in custom-made outfits are swaying and dancing slowly to music. Ah, finally I can see the real you. Looking at Black Widow and Hawkeye, Qin Wuying was extremely excited. Do we have fakes? Hawkeye laughed and tossed over a cookie. Seeing that the 3 had made contact, Sasha quietly left the room. Qin Wuying took the snack, put it in her mouth and chewed it. A cranberry flavor spread out. He felt a bit dizzy, as if something was wrong. Oops. Why is Black Widow carrying a quiver while Hawkeye is wearing a white, tight-fitting combat suit? Which of you is Hawkeye? It's me, Natasha Romanoff replied casually, raising one hand. Then who is Black? Just as Qin Wuying was about to say the word widow, she felt it was inappropriate. I am a widower, Clint added. Qin Wuying opened his mouth wide, not knowing what to say for a moment. The abilities of this pair of agents are completely opposite to those in other universes. And what kind of tongue-twisting name is widower? And you, what's your code name? Natasha blinked, staring at Qin Wuying's casual suit. For a secret agent, the looseness of this outfit is a bit too much. Me. Qin Wuying desperately searched her mind for words that could be used as a form of address. I am a mage agent, codename Pangolin. Chapter 26 Saving Private Roads. Ha 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 ha. Did you hear that? He said he's a pangolin. Natasha and Clint clutched their stomachs, laughing so hard they were doubled over. All right, the widower walked over and patted Qin Wuying on the shoulder. Let's test your strength first. The 2 led Qin Wuying into a training room. At one end of the room was a shooting platform, and at the other end were many scattered targets. It's immediately obvious that this is a training ground for firearms and archery. Qin Wuying picked up a pistol from the table that looked like a USP and pretended to aim at the bullseye of the target opposite him. Hey! You've got it wrong. Hawkeye Natasha blocked the muzzle of the gun with one hand. My technique isn't correct, is it? It should be noted that Qin Wuying had never seen a real gun before, let alone used one. That's all right, Clint said with a knowing smile, because you're going to be a sitting duck. Upon hearing this, Qin Wuying instantly became alert and teleported to a distance slightly away from the 2. What do you mean by this? Are you suggesting this mission is to kill me again? Thinking of Nick Fury's repeated insistence, Qin Wuying felt that he had been tricked by this cunning old man again. No, we just want to know if you have the capability to cooperate with us. Seeing Qin Wuying tense up, Natasha quickly explained and showed him an arrow without an arrowhead from the tube. Qin Wuying then slowly relaxed and walked to the middle of the targets. The Hawkeye and the Widowmaker in this world seem rather arrogant and not the type to easily submit to others. Well then, let them have a good look. I'm not giving you any advance notice, so you'll have to rely on your own reactions. Natasha waved to Qin Wuying, signaling the start of the test. Qin Wuying made no verbal or physical response. Duan. Natasha lightly plucked the bowstring, making it appear as if she was about to shoot an arrow. Qin Wuying remained completely still on the other side. Duan duan. He plucked the strings twice more, each time louder than the last. Then, in the next second, Kamui. The speeding bullet pierced through Qin Wuying's body and struck the target behind him. The bow and arrow were just a feint. What he really needed to be wary of was the bullet Clint secretly fired from the side. Even though those were very soft training rounds, they would probably still hurt a lot if they hit you. Tisk, you managed to spot that. Clint, the widower, smacked his lips, surprised that his sneak attack tactic had failed. Child, I can react to the seashell. Qin Wuying made a facepalm laughing crying emoji. As a player with a ranking of 3000 points in a certain game, his reaction speed is a major advantage. Clint and Natasha exchanged a glance and had no choice but to admit defeat. Although they were seasoned veterans, they had never seen Qin Wuying possess such abilities. Some people rely on supersonic speed, while others rely on teleportation devices. Qin Wuying appeared to be standing still, yet she could not be hit. You're not a spirit, are you? Like, someone who's already dead. Unable to resist his curiosity any longer, Clint voiced his doubts. How could that be? Don't talk nonsense. Natasha gave Qin Wuying an apologetic look. As for the mission they were to carry out after this meeting, Nick Fury had already sent it over on his terminal. SHIELD has located the Skrull's location where Rhodes is being held. Fury immediately assigned Hawkeye and the White Widow to lead the rescue. However, because the two of them acted on their own too many times, Fury had to find someone else to keep an eye on them. Fury believed that Qin Wuying's teleportation ability was the best choice for this mission. After checking the weapons and equipment one by one, the three got into the car heading to their target location. Hello, it's nice to see you again. How are you? While Sasha was focused on driving, Qin Wuying in the passenger seat persisted and tried to break the ice. Natasha, sitting in the back, couldn't help but smile slightly when she heard Qin Wuying's straightforward question. As expected, Sasha only responded with an and ignored him completely. Lucy is so much better, Qin Wuying thought to herself. She's always been very patient with me. The place we're going to is an abandoned factory area. Clint shared a map on his communication terminal, showing several factories clustered in the center of the area. The director instructed us to avoid killing anyone, otherwise our relationship with the alien guests would become too strained. Natasha added from the side. Qin Wuying felt that whether or not Nick Fury was killed, he was a complete idiot. If the problems of homeland and resources cannot be solved, and if the question of where the Skrulls will go cannot be resolved, secret intrusion incidents cannot be eradicated. Remember not to split up, Qin Wuying reminded him again after getting out of the car. The two agents nodded, seemingly listening but not really. Next, according to the prearranged plan, they had to check each of the closed old factory buildings one by one. If we can't open this, how about we blow it up? The iron gate of the first target factory was covered with more than one large padlock. Unraveling them one by one would take too long, using explosive devices would attract unnecessary attention. Step back, I'll handle this. Having learned from his previous experience in picking locks, Qin Wuying volunteered again. This time, he had an even more ingenious method. Countless slender tentacles made of blue energy emerged from behind Qin Wuying. Ugh, how disgusting! Natasha covered her mouth and complained. Each tentacle reached into the keyhole and then pried it open with extremely slight movements. Then, using the soft cushions conjured from energy, they caught the falling door locks one by one. It's done, nothing's happening. Qin Wuying clapped his hands as he retracted the energy tentacles. Because the door was so old, it inevitably made a creaking sound when pushed open. Natasha frowned, looking thoughtfully at the second floor of the factory. What's wrong? Is something the problem? Qin Wuying looked at Eagle Eye. With her abilities, she might be able to see things that Qin Wuying couldn't. No, I was just thinking, what should we do if there are snipers lying in ambush here? Oh no, this has happened. This is the kind of situation where bad things inevitably follow a person's jinxed prediction. As soon as he finished speaking, 3 red laser dots appeared on the chests of Qin Wuying, Natasha, and Clint, respectively. A tall Skrull man emerged from the shadows on the second floor. I advise you not to move rashly, or your lives will be in danger. Oh, what bad luck! Qin Wuying looked at the other person indifferently, without the slightest pressure. Looking back at Hawkeye and the widower, neither of them showed any sign of panic. The sniper upstairs isn't facing ordinary people, but rather a spatial ability user who can make their body appear ethereal at any time. Eagle eyes, with unparalleled accuracy and exceptional vision. And possibly the world's most skilled secret agent, the widower. We're thinking the same thing, aren't we? Qin Wuying blinked hard at the two agents. Sir. Target number 3 has disappeared. Repeat. Target number 3 has disappeared. Chapter 27 Saving Private Roads. Target number 3 has disappeared. Repeat. Target number 3 is gone. The sniper, having lost track of Qin Wuying, shouted in panic. I was just locked onto by the ray, how did I suddenly disappear? Upon hearing the report, Commander Skrull was somewhat surprised and quickly looked around warily. Hello, are you looking for me? Before anyone knew it, an energy dagger was already pressed against the Skrull commander's neck. Never mind me, shoot the target. Oh ah! Before he could finish speaking, Qin Wuying deftly wiped the enemy off the second floor. What a pity, I gave you a chance. Upon seeing their superior officer killed, the snipers lost their composure and opened fire. 2 bullets flying at extremely high speeds were heading straight for Natasha and Clint. The White Widower pushed off with both legs and tumbled in the air. Hawkeye swiftly took a specially made arrow from his quiver and fired it instantly. When the bullet hits the arrowhead of the specially made arrow, it is struck and explodes mid-air. While neutralizing the sniper's first wave of attacks, the 3 immediately began to move at high speed. Given the dim lighting inside the factory, the Skrulls had difficulty pinpointing their location. But the snipers already fired their shots. A Skrull sniper realized the problem and was raising his heavy sniper rifle, preparing to change his position. But suddenly I felt a chill in my abdomen. Looking down, I saw a piercing wound on my lower abdomen. What is going on? Before he could even groan in pain, the Skrull sniper collapsed, clutching his stomach. Within seconds, Qin Wuying eliminated all the exposed snipers. What are you doing? Fury instructed us to spare their lives if possible. After they regrouped, the Widower expressed his dissatisfaction with Qin Wuying's actions. They fired first, we were acting in self-defense. Besides. What else? Just say that I, a temporary worker, did all the work, and it has nothing to do with SHIELD. Clint and Natasha exchanged a surprised glance. Holy crap, is there even such a way to take the blame? After a thorough search of the first factory building, no abnormalities were found. There are 2 more to come. If nothing unexpected happens, there will be a large group of armed Skrulls at the entrance right now. They will completely surround the place where Qin Wuying and the others are. After scanning the area with the infrared system, Eagle Eye roughly determined the number and direction of the enemy. Now we're stuck, are we really going to have to start a massacre? Qin Wuying patted the Widower on the shoulder, don't rush, let me turn my back first. Then, Qin Wuying tried hard to recall what the factory they were in looked like, and the entrance that was covered with locks. A square portal with blue borders opened before us. On the other side of the portal, a group of Skrulls carrying rifles stood with their backs to Qin Wuying and the 2 agents. Wait, don't mages need to use a suspension ring to activate this? Your intelligence is quite comprehensive. However, I am more gifted. The 3 men nimbly stepped over and silently took down the commander at the back. The other Skrulls were so focused on aiming that they didn't notice what was happening behind them. The group then slipped into the second factory that needed to be inspected. Dude, why didn't you use this skill sooner? The Widower frowned, thinking that if he had used the teleportation portal earlier, he might not have had to start the killing spree. I can only teleport to places I've seen or been to. Qin Wuying stared intently at a slightly raised section of the floor and answered casually. Compared to the previous factory, this one is too empty. Almost all the abandoned equipment and facilities have been cleared away, leaving only a dusty ground. Do the 3 of us think the same way? Hawkeye also noticed the unusual arrangement. Ugh. I can't get any strength in here. After trying to pry it up for a long time, the Widower finally gave up. This place is probably just damaged or not properly renovated, in any case, it's not a hidden door. There seems to be a small switch here. Qin Wuying found a lever painted with camouflage next to the raised floor. Pull the switch, and the hidden door slowly opens, revealing a downward ladder. The group of people looked at each other. Although it was a little awkward, it didn't affect the continued execution of the task. After a long climb up the ladder, the 3 of them landed one after another. The air was filled with fine dust, mixed with the smell of an unknown fuel. In contrast, the corridors are designed in a particularly orderly manner, and the renovations are brand new. Following the electronic map that Natasha had stolen, they quickly arrived at the door of the most suspicious room. Of course, we also encountered a few Skrulls along the way. However, none of them were soldiers carrying weapons, so they were all quickly knocked unconscious. Okay, how do we get in? Looking at the smart fingerprint lock, Qin Wuying felt a little eager to try it out. I copied one of the Skrull fingerprints. As he spoke, the Widower raised the fingerprint extractor and gently pressed it onto the recognition area. We don't want to see your grotesque tentacles again, Natasha shrugged. Beep beep. Authentication successful. The automatic doors opened to both sides, revealing the scene hidden behind them. There were many unidentified containers lined up on both sides, and a person was lying in each container. It looks like the Skrulls will lock up this poor guy whose identity was swapped in this dark and gloomy place. Qin Wuying checked each item along one side and finally found Rhodes in the last area. He quickly called Natasha over, hacked into the system, and unlocked Rhodes's container. Cough 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 cough. Having just awakened from a long period of unconsciousness, Rod couldn't help but cough violently. He has not fully regained consciousness and even walking is a problem. The Widower and Hawkeye each held one side of Rhodes' arms, helping him straighten up. Colonel, how long have you been locked up here? Seeing that Luota had regained some consciousness, Qin Wuying quickly asked a question. He certainly doesn't want this universe to experience a collapse of worldviews or the problem of retconning existing knowledge. Rhodes glanced at Natasha's communication device. Not for long, only a month or two. Hearing this, Qin Wuying breathed a sigh of relief. That makes things easier. At least Tony Stark's friendship with Rhodes is genuine. Moreover, there should still be some time before any major events occur. SHIELD and the military will intervene here to rescue them. We'll retreat first. The White Widower relayed Nick Fury's latest instructions to the group. Using the teleportation portal, Qin Wuying sent everyone directly back to the base where they had met. Several agents were already waiting there to take Rhodes to the hospital. Clint and Natasha remained on standby. As for Qin Wuying, she had just sat down to catch her breath when the phone rang again. I'm not accepting any missions right now, you bastard. After working non-stop for so many days, even an Iron Man deserves a rest. Sorry. But I wanted to ask if you would like to take a vacation. Lucy's gentle voice came from the other end of the phone. Sorry, I thought you were from SHIELD. Qin Wuying rubbed his temples, he was extremely tense. It's okay, you can go on vacation with me next. Hey? Just the two of us. Chapter 28 Vacation and Racing. Is this not a good idea of ours? Qin Wuying felt a little shy looking at Lucy's serious expression. Despite having a casual suit that he had prepared in advance, Lucy insisted on buying him a few more clothes. The lighting is bright and soft, and the decor is exquisite and luxurious. In the past, Qin Wuying wouldn't have even had the courage to push open the door. There are several shops like this in New York City that make custom menswear. They are currently visiting the store of the most expensive brand. What are you talking about? When you go out with me, clothing is just a very basic thing to keep in mind. Lucy answered while stroking the fabric of Qin Wuying's shirt. Qin Wuying had just secretly glanced at the price on the watch, 200,000 points for the whole set. I almost fainted. If he didn't want to appear weak in front of her, he would have run out of the store long ago. Besides the high price, the main reason is that he doesn't want girls to pay for him. However, Lucy seemed particularly enthusiastic about this and was very determined to come here to buy it. Young miss, shall we keep today's events a secret from Mr. Ral Stark? Keep it a secret? I already asked him for this vacation. Lucy smiled with satisfaction as she looked at Qin Wuying, who had changed into a burgundy suit. At this moment, Qin Wuying noticed that the two young female employees were covering their mouths and whispering something. Actually, we were afraid that news of your relationship would get out. One of the girls walked over quickly and whispered to Lucy. What? We're not in that kind of relationship. Qin Wuying quickly spoke up to clarify. It would be terrible if people mistakenly thought he was having an affair with Lucy Stark. His colleagues at the company would probably want to tear him to pieces. Moreover, given her special status, public opinion will definitely be very unfavorable to her. Well, we're not yet. Lucy smiled and then walked to the cashier to pay. Oh dear, young lady, this won't do. When Lucy took out her bank card to swipe it, the female cashier quickly reached out to stop her. After a brief argument, the suit was accepted as a gift. 2 days later, the custom-made suit will be delivered to your door by a specialist. Stepping out of the clothing store, Qin Wuying still felt somewhat surreal. Thank you. I've never experienced anything like this before. Just call me by my name, we've known each other for so long. Qin Wuying didn't reply, he was a little shy. This was the first time he had gotten quite close to a girl. Calling someone by their first name directly? Isn't that a bit too ambiguous? Okay, Lucy, thank you. When it's time to be decisive and courageous, be brave. The girl returned his smile with a bright smile. Even now, Qin Wuying doesn't understand why she trusts him so much. But he knew that without Lucy's help, he would be unable to make a single step in this world. 3 days later, Qin Wuying, dressed in a burgundy suit and wearing an expensive watch, appeared on the rooftop helipad of Stark Tower. Mr. Qin, please wait a moment, Miss will be here shortly. A respectful voice handed over a glass of fine red wine. Qin Wuying turned her head and saw that it was the young male waiter with a bad attitude from the swimming pool incident. He took the glass and drank it all in one gulp. At the time, others might have thought I was a pervert, so they didn't pursue the matter with this guy. Otherwise, given his position as the Deputy Minister of Security, he could easily find any excuse to fire the waiter. How's it going? Have you been waiting long? Qin Wuying's eyes widened as he watched Lucy walk towards him from a distance. Wearing a long black dress, her steps were steady and elegant, and her fair skin was particularly captivating in the sunlight. Those delicate and petite features seemed to have been sculpted by the most exquisite sculptor. Upon closer inspection, the subtle fragrance is intoxicating. In this state, Lucy completely captured Qin Wuying's heart. Qin Wuying patted his face, trying to clear his head a little. However, the next second, Lucy linked arms with his. The soft touch of the girl's skin, and the increasingly intoxicating fragrance. I thought I had arrived in heaven. Let's go? What are you still standing there for? Oh? Oh. Qin Wuying boarded the helicopter under Lucy's guidance. Today we're going to a very famous racetrack. A national tour is in full swing. On the way to watch the game, Qin Wuying felt uneasy. Even though I'm on vacation with beautiful women by my side, I still have this feeling that something bad is about to happen. Welcome everyone. Today is the final round of the knockout stage. To get a better view, Lucy specifically bought a seat relatively close to the track. As the host announced the news, cheers erupted from the audience in waves. 3, 2, 1. The race officially began, and one F1 car after another shot off like arrows. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Each time it passed in front of Qin Wuying and Lucy, it would immediately bring up a very strong gust of wind. Wow! That's amazing! Lucy shouted as she tightly hugged Qin Wuying's right arm. Qin Wuying held the cola in her free hand and savored it contentedly. Considering how busy I've been these past few days, this kind of time is truly precious. I really hope it can stay like this forever. Wait, everyone, something seems to have happened. Just as Qin Wuying had finally relaxed completely, the crowd suddenly became a little restless. Looking into the track, you can see a mechanic in work clothes walking towards the center of the track, disregarding the danger. Is that person crazy? Who knows? Maybe he's just unhappy with life and is looking for trouble. Hey, don't let an accident happen at such an exciting time. The audience started making a fuss, some told the repairman to get out, some called for management, and others worriedly called the police. Qin Wuying stared intently at the repairman's face, feeling as if she had seen him somewhere before. He looks like Silas. No, wait. That's Ivan Vanko. It didn't take him long to remember who the person was. That means that, barring any unforeseen circumstances, an accident is about to happen. As expected, Ivan took off his uniform, revealing a rudimentary exoskeleton and the reactor core on his chest. Two F1 cars sped up from behind, about to crash into Ivan. Ivan lashed out with two whips, instantly destroying the race car. The explosion sent flames shooting up, the vehicle shattering into pieces, and thick smoke billowing out. Help! A piece of car door flew out of the smoke and headed straight for Lucy's front door. Qin Wuying immediately activated her magical shield, deflecting the fragments. Are you all right, Lucy? Call that old doctor from the central office right now. Aren't you going to fight? How could that old man possibly defeat this monster? Just do as I say, trust me. Qin Wuying stretched out his arms, creating a defensive barrier that enveloped the two of them. Lucy quickly took a few deep breaths to calm herself down, and then dialed the old doctor's number. Chapter 29 Iron Man appears. Will this really work? Lucy was very worried as Ivan Van Kirk's destruction of the arena became increasingly rampant. What puzzled her even more was that Qin Wuying didn't fight at all. Trust me. And protecting you is more important than defeating him. Qin Wuying strained to maintain the defensive barrier, speaking without turning his head. Ivan's original target was Tony Stark, and his aim was to take revenge on the Stark family. Now that Tony is missing, Ivan's target will definitely be Lucy. Just then, the roar of a helicopter engine came from the sky. The two looked up and saw that the logo on the hatch was Stark Industries. The slightly noisy noise also caught Ivan's attention. The madman known as Whiplash walked toward the helicopter with a crazed grin on his face, seemingly oblivious to his surroundings. Seeing that the landing was too risky, the pilot had no choice but to lower the ladders so that the old doctor could climb up quickly. Mr. Qin, Dr. Fick is here. Quickly, find a way to protect him. As Lucy saw the whip loop getting closer and closer to the old man, she couldn't help but shout anxiously. Old Fick, who sits in the office all day, has severely deteriorated his leg mobility, and his speed is comparable to that of an old tortoise. Grab him. A meaningful smile appeared on Qin Wuying's lips. What? Lucy stared in disbelief, unable to believe that Qin Wuying would betray her at this time. Several SHIELD agents rushed out from the shadows, grabbed Dr. Fick, and pulled him aside. Yes, that's it, tie it up tightly, especially the arms. Under Qin Wuying's command, the agents tied the old doctor up tightly. What are you doing? Lucy exclaimed in astonishment. I told you to trust me, okay? Qin Wuying reached out and touched Lucy's hair. You bastards, I'll make you pay. Seeing that the person in front of him was ignoring him and talking to himself, Ivan was furious. Slap. Slap. Slap slap. The whip, crackling with super strong electricity and kinetic energy, struck the magical barrier solidly, one blow after another. Defensive spells were not Qin Wuying's forte, and some small cracks had already appeared on the shield. Aren't you coming yet? Qin Wuying roared angrily at the sky. He knew that the other party would definitely appear at the final, most crucial moment. But if we don't take action soon, things will get very complicated. As Qin Wuying called for backup, the tracking alarm on Ivan's body also started beeping. Everyone looked up at the sky in unison. The sound of something moving at high speed cutting through the air could be faintly heard from afar. Will that stuff really work, Mr. Qin? Several agents gripped their submachine guns tightly, ready to deal with the worst-case scenario. However, Qin Wuying's expression became increasingly relaxed. The hero has arrived. A flash of crimson and shimmering gold light streaked past. A man in an Iron Man suit kneels on one knee, making his entrance in a classic superhero pose. Is this another alloy Might King? Lucy looked at the battlesuit in front of her, feeling somewhat confused. No, he isn't. Qin Wuying smiled. Next, in front of Stark Industries executives, within the SHIELD operations, and in front of reporters who were secretly filming, Iron Man announced his arrival to the world. Interesting, Whiplash chewed on the cigarette butt in his mouth. I thought only I could create the core. However, this interest quickly turned into hatred. Yvonne knew that, besides himself and his father, only Howard Stark possessed this technology. Since they're all connected to Stark, they're all his enemies. Go to hell. The whip, crackling with electricity, roared as it charged toward the soldiers. The red and yellow warriors, undeterred, glided rapidly toward their opponents with the aid of their leg-powered systems. Yvonne threw a vicious punch. The soldier leaned back and easily dodged the attack, then turned and fired a laser from his hand. The laser struck Yvonne squarely in the center of his back, sending sparks flying. You bastard, I'm definitely going to kill you. The intense burning sensation was excruciating for Yvonne. He turned around and lashed out with the whips from a distance. Unable to dodge in time, the soldier was instantly entangled by the electrified whip. As Yvonne let out a sinister laugh, he pulled the soldier toward him step by step. The soldier exerted force to the right, using the jet propulsion to accelerate and pull Yvonne away. However, Yvonne used the momentum from his high position to throw a punch. As he threw the punch, Yvonne also overcharged the whip. The overflowing electricity instantly numbed the soldiers, rendering them unable to react to the opponent's attacks. The punch landed squarely on the soldier's face, sending him flying. Mr. Qin, aren't you going to help? Seeing that the battle was going against the reinforcements, the agents were getting restless. Why aren't you helping? Qin Wuying rolled her eyes at them. No one is to participate without my instructions. Hearing Qin Wuying's firm stance, the others had no choice but to give up. At this moment, the soldier was lying on the wreckage of a race car, and appeared to have passed out. Ivan's expression was exactly like that of a madman. The scene he had been waiting for years had finally come true. He wanted to kill every member of the Stark family with his own hands. Especially those guys who also have mastered reactor technology. All the technology, honors, and status belong to him alone. Now, Yvonne raises his hands, ready to deliver the final blow to the unconscious warrior. The cycle time is too slow. What did you say? Yvonne was startled and dropped the cigarette butt from his mouth to the ground. You should double the speed, that would be more efficient. As he spoke, the soldier easily jumped to his feet. Impossible, I clearly defeated you. Just kidding. Also, thank you for the extra energy. On the soldier's screen, his AI assistant reported an extremely high value of 200%. Boom. A massive beam of light instantly erupted from the core of the warrior's chest. That energy is enough to penetrate thick tank armor. Yvonne didn't even have a chance to scream before he was blasted several meters away. The warrior then activated the power from his hands and feet, flying at low altitude to the SHIELD agents. He still has vital signs, you can lock him up temporarily. After saying that, the soldier made preparations to take off again. Wait a minute. Who are you? At that moment, a female reporter rushed out from a corner, holding up her phone. The soldier turned his head and glanced at the other person's screen. It is being streamed live globally, attracting millions of online viewers. Qin Wuying looked at the soldier expectantly. He already knew how the soldier would answer. Okay, listen to me. The soldier turned his face toward the camera and paused for a moment. I am Iron Man. Chapter 30, Ral Stark arrives. I understand the logic, but what's the point of having him here? After the crisis was over, Lucy pointed to the old doctor who was tied up and had his mouth covered. That's why. Qin Wuying walked over coldly and took a remote control out of the old doctor's shirt pocket. Then the agents tore off the duct tape from Fick's mouth. I don't understand, what are you trying to prove by using this? The old man was panting heavily, clearly having suffocated for a while. Are you going to tell the story, or am I going to expose it? While fiddling with the remote control in his hand, Qin Wuying watched Dr. Fick with great interest. I really don't understand. It's just a remote control for a screen that I accidentally brought out. Qin Wuying roared, you still dare to be stubborn. There's a Palladium content label on it, along with an adjustment button and a one-click burst feature. Do you think I'm blind? Upon hearing this, Dr. Fick immediately perked up, don't talk nonsense if you don't understand. This is all necessary for element control in the experiment. Humph, Qin Wuying sneered, pointing to the few small characters below. Then tell me, what exactly is Tony Stark's life monitoring? This. Qin Wuying grabbed Fick by the back of the neck and threw him out heavily. With this, you can interrogate him as you please. After tossing the remote control to an agent of SHIELD, Qin Wuying helped Lucy, who had been squatting, to her feet. There's still one thing I don't quite understand. Lucy straightened her clothes and hair, and looked into Qin Wuying's eyes. What? If it's just about defeating that madman, you could do it yourself, right? Why call in extra people? Because it's more flamboyant this way. Lucy shook her head, she didn't quite understand Qin Wuying's pursuit of Zhang Yang. However, in Qin Wuying's view, this is an extremely important way to correct this timeline. There is no unassuming Iron Man in any universe. The first step in getting Iron Man involved in various events. The goal is to bring him into the public eye and onto the headlines of various media outlets. Although the fact that Iron Man is Tony Stark cannot be revealed for the time being. However, with the old doctor dealt with, at least Tony's life is no longer in someone else's hands. But I'm curious, how did you know that was for dealing with Mr. Tony? And also, where is Tony Stark? On the helicopter ride back, Lucy kept asking questions. For her, who is focused on various affairs at the company, whether it is going out for fun or witnessing the battle of superheroes, it is all very new. Do you remember the mysterious masked man? Qin Wuying whispered in Lucy's ear, answering quietly. The latter suddenly realized. After a long while, the helicopter slowly landed on the roof of the company building. The warm glow of the setting sun gently spilled down, illuminating the glass windows of the surrounding buildings. Thank you for protecting me today. I'm so sorry you had to work so hard on your vacation. Lucy pulled Qin Wuying to sit by the pool, gazing together at the distant horizon. Well, it's because you've helped me a lot. Besides, as the Deputy Minister of the Security Department, it's what I should do. Is that all? In that instant, Qin Wuying's mind went completely blank. Lucy's arms were braced on either side of his body, their faces so close that they could feel each other's breath. Qin Wuying wanted to say something, but her mouth was sealed by the other person's small index finger. Both of them closed their eyes, with only one wish in their hearts. Mr. Qin. Something terrible has happened. There's an urgent hearing that requires your attendance. A member of the security department rushed over. You really know how to pick your timing. Lucy's gentle expression immediately turned serious and displeased. It's all right, Qin Wuying gently stroked Lucy's face, we'll talk about it next time. Let's go see what's going on first. I didn't see anything. The person who came to deliver the message lowered his head and ran away in fright. After a short rest, Lucy and Qin Wuying pushed open the conference room door side by side. The venue was packed with people, and on the stage were several military and government officials. Various flashes and cameras were shoved into the faces of the two people. Seeing Lucy's calm and composed demeanor, Qin Wuying was not intimidated at all. Although he had never seen such a scene before, he would never show any weakness in front of her. After seeing the nameplates on the seats, Qin Wuying and Lucy sat down at the front. To Qin Wuying's left was Rhodes, the figure who connected the government and Stark Industries. Let's talk, Miss Lucy Stark. The military representative spoke first, and his expression and tone were clearly hostile. Qin Wuying glanced at the information on the screen and understood that this hearing was aimed at the suddenly appearing Iron Man. Let me be blunt, who is he? Pointing to the images and videos of Iron Man in battle that were playing, the military representative frowned. You promised there wouldn't be a second suit of armor like this. He will not threaten the military's established strategy. Lucy answered firmly, we have full safeguards in place. The scene immediately sparked a flurry of discussion, especially among representatives from other tech giants. Excuse my bluntness, young lady, but you probably don't understand the situation yet. A lean, bespectacled man stood up and spoke into the microphone in front of him. Qin Wuying recognized him, this was Justin Hammer, the CEO of Hammer Industries. Mr. Hammer, aren't you taking advantage of someone in a vulnerable position? Before he could even begin to speak, Qin Wuying interrupted Hammer, who looked surprised and had no idea who Qin Wuying was. However, Qin Wuying ignored him and continued talking to herself. If you insist on opposing Stark Industries, then I will have no choice but to release your upcoming prison break plan. This statement caused a huge uproar. The focus of everyone's discussion was Iron Man just now, but in the blink of an eye, it has shifted to Hammer. Holy crap, how did this kid know? I just created the folder. Hammer was filled with doubt, fearing that Qin Wuying was bluffing him, but he was even more afraid that Qin Wuying really knew. Upon hearing the words prison break, military representatives and government officials immediately became alert and turned their scrutinizing gazes toward Hammer. I won't say anything. After careful consideration, Han Mo decided that there was no point in continuing the conversation, so he quietly sat back down in his seat. The hearing was in complete chaos, the presiding officer didn't know who to ask first, and the participating representatives had differing opinions. Lord Ral Stark is back. He's finally back. Just then, shouts came from outside the door from company employees. Immediately afterwards, the door at the back of the venue opened, and Larry Stark stepped in. Chapter 31 The Emperor of the Stark Group. A person who was completely unfamiliar to Qin Wuying and whom she had no recollection of. In any parallel universe, you cannot find a second counterpart. Qin Wuying tried searching his name on social media in this world. Ral Stark. He is said to be Tony Stark's older brother. He has never appeared in public or attended any events. However, it firmly controls the entire Stark Group. His technological and military industries span the entire globe, from the Arctic to the Antarctic. Every cutting-edge product bears the Stark Group logo and Ralph Stark's name. He developed Stark Industries' own security forces to replace government control over cities. Anyone living in New York City would treat Ral Stark with utmost respect. Quickly. Everyone make way. Lord Ral Stark is back. Just as the hearing was descending into chaos, shouts from outside the door suddenly silenced the world. Qin Wuying had previously heard Lucy say that Ral Stark was rarely at the company. Did he make an emergency return specifically for this meeting? Like everyone else present, Qin Wuying looked toward the door behind him with intense curiosity. The automatic doors moved backward to both sides. A man in a dark brown suit stopped at the door. All eyes in the room were instantly drawn to this person. Ral Stark. Without a doubt, the person emanating an incredibly oppressive aura is the highest-ranking person in the group. He is nearly 1.9 meters tall, with a strong physique and a serious and dignified demeanor. Those facial features were very similar to Tony's, and the first impression he gave was completely different from Tony's. His hair and beard were slightly grey, which further accentuated Lal's maturity. And a sharp gaze that could almost kill. Who gave you the right to cause trouble here? No one dared to speak. Is that you, Rod? Or is it you, Hammer? It wasn't me, sir, Rod replied softly. Hey, what's going on? Didn't we say he wasn't coming? The government officials looked at each other in bewilderment. Lars Stark then turned his gaze to Qin Wuying. Hello, sir. Qin Wuying mustered her courage and extended her hand to the other person. This guy's gone mad. Lord Ral Stark never shakes hands with anyone. One of the entrepreneurs whispered to his companion that Qin Wuying's overstepping of authority meant he was doomed. The next second, Larry Stark freed his right hand and shook hands with Qin Wuying. The audience was shocked. This young, unidentified Deputy Minister of Security received a handshake from Lars Stark. Business leaders and government representatives stood up and greeted Qin Wuying with their eyes. But only Qin Wuying knew that the grip Lal used was very strong, and it was not just a normal gesture of courtesy. I heard you and my daughter are getting very close. A classic way of asking questions with a forced, insincere smile. Yes. Your daughter and I work together very well. A classic, official-style answer. Therefore, I hereby formally appoint you as the Minister of Security. The flashbulbs immediately focused on Qin Wuying's face. I am honored, sir. Qin Wuying released his hand. In just a few more seconds, he would have been so nervous that his hands would have been sweating profusely. In a few hours, Qin Wuying's name will appear on the headlines of authoritative media outlets. However, Ral Stark's true appearance will still not be revealed to the public. Those who get to see Lar today will be required to keep it strictly confidential. Qin, come with me. Father, what are you going to do to him? This is none of your business. Ral Stark waved to Qin Wuying, ignoring Lucy. Sir, what about this hearing? A slightly younger government official stood up and boldly called out to Lars Stark. It's over. Those two simple words made the official swallow back all the words he wanted to say. It's okay, I'll handle it. Qin Wuying made a promise to Lucy, and then followed the chairman out of the venue. He couldn't even imagine how explosive the scene would be after Ral Stark left. Along the way, Qin Wuying saw all sorts of robots again. It appears that on the lower floors, a large amount of work is done by robots. In some ways, this is somewhat similar to Iron Man's original ideal. You've never been here before, have you? Relax, kid. As they stepped out of the elevator, Larry Stark patted Qin Wuying on the shoulder. The office located at the top of the Stark Group building. Although I had been to the rooftop before, I did not have permission to enter this office. Ignoring Qin Wuying's reaction, Lars sat down in the chair. Why do you think I didn't let Tony show up? I don't understand, sir. Very good, you are very honest and didn't beat around the bush. Lao poured himself a glass of wine and took a deep sniff of its aged aroma. His ostentation will make us the enemy of the whole world. Qin Wuying nodded, he did not intend to offer any rebuttal. It is clearly more beneficial to cultivate a good relationship with the other party than to engage in direct conflict. Now, you've killed Stanislavski too. He deliberately plotted to kill Tony Stark, sir. I know, Lar handed Qin Wuying a glass of wine, which Qin Wuying quickly accepted with both hands. Then the Ten Commandments gang, which has dealings with him, is useless. Without needing to say more, Qin Wuying understood the meaning behind the chairman's words. It is said that Ral Stark tacitly approved of S.H.I.E.L.D's series of operations to eliminate the Ten Rings. Now, the remnants of the Ten Commandments are regrouping. Qin Wuying had already learned of this information through the intelligence department of the Ministry of Security. So, they have what we need, but they can't give it to SHIELD. Lao smiled faintly, you're about as smart as I thought. You can leave now. Qin Wuying turned around and took 2 steps toward the office door, but suddenly stopped, as if remembering something. What's wrong? Sir, is there anything else you need to tell me? Oh. Ral turned his chair towards the huge floor-to-ceiling window, his back to Qin Wuying. You have potential. After a brief conversation, Qin Wuying returned to the security department. Many of his subordinates had been notified in advance and were already waiting in the operations room. Mr. Qin, they made the first move, they're in Kumala. Cliff, a colleague from the field team, handed me a paper report. Kumala. As Qin Wuying murmured the name of the small town, it gradually became clearer to him. That place holds special significance for Tony Stark. Or to be more precise, it is the hometown of Tony's early close friend. Listen up, everyone, Qin Wuying tapped the table and looked at his team members. Maintain a high level of security within the company. I'm going on this mission alone. During our last encounter with the Ten Rings gang, we unexpectedly recovered a reactor. That reactor was stolen by Stanislav and became the core of the Ironmonger armor. What will happen in Kumala this time? Chapter 32 Operation Komela. Put the children in one truck, the women in another, and kill the men on the spot. Hurry up, you bunch of lazy dogs. Damn it, you dare to resist? I'll teach you a lesson you won't forget. 10 Commandments members, their faces covered by black masks, were directing the looting while punching and kicking a man. The air was filled with the smell of gunpowder, and the cries of children could be heard. The women's screams were heart-wrenching, and the men's corpses were piling up into a small mountain. In the normal timeline, Iron Man would come to save them. But now, Ral Stark is back, and he won't let Tony go out. The local police were poorly equipped, while the Ten Rings had Stark Industries' most advanced missiles. Behave yourself, you bastard. If you keep making trouble, I'll beat you to death. The leader kicked the raggedly dressed boy to the ground and then raised his gun. Rat-a-tat-tat-tat. The little boy closed his eyes tightly in fear, waiting for death to come. However, nothing happened. The bullets all bounced back, entering through the chin of the Ten Commandments leader and exiting through his forehead. The guy who was so arrogant just moments ago is now lying on his back, blood splattering everywhere. Go back to your mother. Qin Wuying appeared out of nowhere, squatted down beside him, and patted the boy's cheek. Watching the boy run away, Qin Wuying was furious. These beasts don't even spare children. Shoot. Kill him. A group of bandits from the Ten Commandments gang immediately surrounded Qin Wuying. They were all carrying state-of-the-art Hammer Industries rifles. It's clear that, in addition to Stark Industries, they also have an ambiguous relationship with Hammer Industries. Bullets rained down, attacking from all directions. Whoosh. Whoosh 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 whoosh. After a round of intense firing that emptied the magazines, the Ten Rings gang members who had formed a circle fell one by one. Their bullets all struck their teammates. Qin Wuying, who was in the very center, had long since disappeared. Now, these bandits probably have a deep understanding of the name Qin Wuying. Hey, what are you looking at? Qin Wuying appeared like a ghost behind the bandits who were holding hostages. The thugs quickly pointed their guns at the woman and child's temples. If you dare come any closer, they'll all be dead. Them? Who are they? Qin Wuying spread his hands, making a puzzled expression. Are you blind? A bandit was about to grab the child by the collar when he realized there was nothing in front of him. Looking up, he saw that the hostages who had been taken hostage were now standing safely behind Qin Wuying. Who exactly are you? The bandit gritted his teeth, unable to understand. Me. Qin Wuying smiled slightly. I'm just a little follower. Seeing that they had no effective means to harm Qin Wuying, the members of the Ten Commandments gang simply jumped into the car and prepared to leave. When faced with an enemy you can't defeat, of the 36 stratagems, running away is the best. However, they made one mistake. Faced with spatial abilities, where can one go if one simply walks? Boss, look! Isn't there someone standing up there? Who's causing trouble? Just kill them. A few minutes after the car drove off, the 10 Commandments gang members were celebrating their good fortune. Despite some losses, they still managed to plunder some property and women. Upon receiving the instruction, the driver slammed on the gas pedal, flooring it, and immediately felt a strong surge of acceleration. At the current speed, if it hits an ordinary person, they would either suffer a comminuted fracture or be crushed into a pulp. Oh, oh, oh! Go tell my wheel! The driver yelled and prepared to run someone over. However, the moment the hood of the car made contact with the person, it passed right through the person's body. It was as if that person didn't exist in any physical form. A mirage, a sea. No way, it must be true. Hearing the unfamiliar voice, the driver turned around in fright, only to meet Qin Wuying's gaze. A ghost. There's a ghost. What are you yelling for? How rude. Qin Wuying punched the driver, sending him flying out of the window. Then, casually draw a portal and throw the passenger seat into it. Hey buddy, here's a direct ticket to prison. Qin Wuying then got into the driver's seat and slowly pressed the brake. The 2 cars traveling alongside also slowed down. Hey! What are you guys doing? Why did you stop? The driver of the other car ran over and knocked on the window. But no one responded to his question. The driver peered through the window and realized that both the driver and the passenger were nowhere to be found. Speaking of which, why are there 2 shadows reflected in the window? The driver looked back but saw nothing. Bang! With no view of him, Qin Wuying slammed his head against the car window. The first impact hit it hard, and his head was bleeding profusely. Bang bang crash! The glass shattered on the second and third impacts, with debris clattering loudly. Seeing that things were not going well, the last car hurriedly started and tried to escape the scene. However, no matter how he tried to start the engine, the car wouldn't budge. The thug in the driver's seat pressed the accelerator with all his might, but it was all in vain. And as he stepped on it, he suddenly felt a chill under his buttocks. Looking down, he saw a square portal directly beneath him. The stunning views of Mount Heli stir. Compared to the one who went straight to prison, this person is quite lucky. Immediately afterwards, he and the co-pilot fell into a valley in the snow-capped mountains. Apart from the first driver, they didn't see Qin Wuying's face at all during the entire process. What's the difference between this and a ghost? Qin Wuying helped the women and children trapped in the truck bed out one by one. There was another car full of 10 Commandments gangsters. These people were still confused. And without orders, they dared not go out to see what was happening. So Qin Wuying poured some gasoline on their car. And accidentally, a few sparks were splashed on it. It exploded in an instant, with flames shooting straight into the sky. The children cheered as they saw the villains being burned. Meanwhile, in a New York City jail, several prison guards were bewildered as a 10 Commandments member appeared out of nowhere. Are there any cases of people flying over from the sky to surrender themselves? After settling the civilians in, Qin Wuying walked alone into the depths of Kumala. There is a small basement here. The interior was cluttered with various rudimentary equipment and blueprints. Qin Wuying walked through the path paved with aluminum cans and waste paper to the table. Agent Pangolin is calling headquarters. SHIELD received. Pangolin, please speak. The terrorist attack in Kumala has been dealt with. You can come and clean up the mess now. After hanging up the call, Qin Wuying quickly glanced at the blueprints on the table. Then he pulled out 2 rolls and hid them inside his shirt. The 2 rolls of paper were covered with dense formulas and designs. The signature is Yin Sen. Chapter 33 Videotapes and Genius. Reporting to headquarters, nothing was found. Understood, retreat. Nick Fury ended the call sullenly. Just now, the special agent team he sent to Kumala returned empty-handed. According to intelligence, there are blueprints for armor designed by the renowned scientist Yin Sen there. If we could get our hands on it, it might greatly enhance the combat capabilities of our special agents. Where did that thing go? Is this what you're looking for? Ugh. Did you have to scare me like that, damn it? Qin Wuying held up the 2 tattered scrolls of blueprints in his hand and waved them in front of Fury. Leaving aside what you have in your hand, how did you get in here? Looking at the office door, which was just as locked as it had been a few minutes earlier, Fury felt a little scared. Don't worry, I don't usually wander around. In fact, for Qin Wuying, the physical wall no longer posed any obstacle. Passing through walls and teleporting are now commonplace. Are you here to contribute your spoils? Remember to knock next time. Nick Fury patted his chest to catch his breath and picked up a file folder from the table. Seeing that Fury was about to snatch the blueprints from his hands, Qin Wuying quickly took a few steps back. Hey, What are you doing? That's what I should be asking, agent. What are you going to do? Qin Wuying raised a finger and shook it from side to side, making a negative gesture. Don't get me wrong, I'm here to make a deal with you. Upon hearing this, Fury wore an incredulous expression. As a subordinate, how could he propose a deal to his superior? A temporary employee, hey. Qin Wuying added with a smile, as if she had read Fury's mind. He possesses intelligence and identities from 3 different organizations simultaneously. With skillful application, there's nothing he can't get his hands on. Okay, if you have any conditions, please state them quickly. Fury put his hands on his hips, sighed, and prepared to see Qin Wuying's offer. I want the box that Howard Stark left behind. That won't do, it's only for critical situations. Without even thinking, Fury rejected Qin Wuying. This is something we're saving as a final measure to deal with Tony Stark. If someone else takes it, what will SHIELD have to negotiate with Tony? Even if Nick Fury had no equipment and died out there on duty, he wouldn't make such a bad deal. This stuff is really good, tisk tisk. A few minutes later, Nick Fury was studying Yinsen's research and development blueprints with great interest. Qin Wuying walked out of the SHIELD ground base carrying a storage box that was common in the last century. The inescapable law has come into play again. Qin Wuying didn't waste any more time and headed straight for the Stark Group building. A few days ago, with the help of Qin Wuying and Lucy, Tony regained access to his personal laboratory. Qin Wuying can simply go there to find him now. Through the glass door, you could see Tony Stark drinking a dark beverage while replacing a palladium chip. Qin Wuying unlocked the password, pushed open the door, and walked in. Currently, besides Tony himself, only Rhodey, Pepper, and Ral can open the lab. How much longer are you going to wear this thing? Tony's face still wore a metal mask that was extremely similar to the Mark I. I don't know, maybe when I become the company boss again. Actually, your current privileges aren't low, are they? The reason he was inexplicably released on the first day he was captured by Stark Industries was because of Tony's orders. It seems that Ralph Stark, aside from disliking Tony's public appearances, still showed him considerable respect. Qin Wuying placed the box on the balcony and slowly opened it. A scent that could only be emitted from a very distant era filled my nostrils. Cough. Cough cough cough. Yellowed newspapers, old design drawings, and some items that are rarely seen in this century. What kind of garbage did you bring me this time? Tony reattached the cord to his chest and slowly walked to the balcony. Qin Wuying could see the blood vessels on the other person's neck that were being corroded by palladium, and those things were threatening the other person's life. However, the moment Tony saw the reactor design drawings, his eyes remained filled with shock. These were all left to you by your father. Do you have any impressions of him? Recalling the scenes he saw in the movie, Qin Wuying tried his best to recreate them. In my memory, he cared more about his career than about me. Perhaps he has a side that you don't know about. Impossible. How could you know my father better than I do? You really can. Did you know he was one of the founders of SHIELD? Tony shook his head, staring at Howard's reactor design drawings. In short, you haven't tried all the elements yet. Qin Wuying looked around, then pulled up a chair for himself and sat down. The things in here should be helpful to you. What if I don't do as instructed? No sooner had he finished speaking than an energy sword, conjured by magic, was placed against Tony's neck. You're going to die sooner or later if you don't do as I say, so I might as well give you a quick death. And so, with the legacy left by Howard, Tony began his research into the new element. Of course, it's entirely voluntary. After Qin Wuying left, Tony played the videotapes in the box one by himself. The vast majority of the images are of the father participating in various activities. The only time he appeared on camera, his father had someone carry him away. My father was indeed almost exactly as I remembered him. Tony, you're still young and may not understand yet, but all of this was built for you. Tony suddenly looked up at the projection screen. One day you'll realize this represents everything, not just human inventions. Howard explained while showing the set design of the Stark Expo. You are my greatest creation, both now and in the future. The videotape ends abruptly here. In the dimly lit room, Tony gained a different understanding of his father for the first time. Meanwhile, in a similarly dark little room at Hammer Industries, the disheveled man, with the cigarette butt dangling from his mouth, was intently adjusting components and systems. After being released from prison, the man's desire for revenge against Stark Industries intensified. It couldn't be better that there are fools willing to provide him with funding and test subjects. On the control terminal in front of him, the connection and usage status of several devices were displayed. The man reached out and whistled, and a small white bird flew over and landed on the back of his hand. Looking at the Stark Expo poster on the wall, the man couldn't help but let a wicked smile creep onto his face. Oh ho ho ho, Stark Industries. This time, I'm absolutely going to make you and your expo completely and utterly destroyed. Chapter 34. This move is called Flying Thunder God. Although it was already night, New York City was even more bustling than during the day. All because of the Stark Tech Expo that opened today. The industrial park was packed with visitors who had come specifically to see it. Small exhibitions showcasing the latest technologies are scattered throughout the various areas. Food, beer, and entertainment venues are all readily available. However, Qin Wuying was unable to properly enjoy this wonderful event. As the Minister of Security, he spent a lot of time coordinating and directing security operations. Especially since he knew in advance that Ivan Vanko would definitely come and cause trouble. What's wrong, my esteemed mage? Lucy placed her hands on Qin Wuying's shoulders and gently kissed him on the cheek. She seemed completely unconcerned about public opinion and outside views. Didn't I tell you not to call me that? Qin Wuying also gave Lucy a quick kiss on the cheek. However, at this moment, he did not have any extra energy. His attention was entirely focused on the main stage of the expo. Soon it will be Hammer's turn to showcase the latest research and development achievements of their industrial group. Ladies and gentlemen. Hammer walked onto the stage, swaying and looking somewhat drunk. Look, we can now avoid bloodshed. A squad of robots rose up behind him. Introducing Hammer technology. Military drones. Woohoo! A burst of enthusiastic applause immediately erupted from the audience. At every expo, the advanced inventions on the main stage have never disappointed. Army. Hammer pointed with both hands, and the headlights on the left turned on, revealing a row of military green robots under the spotlight. Then comes the Navy. The Air Force. And the Marines. Ah ha ha ha. Hammer's almost manic performance was like that of a drunkard. As the spotlights were turned on, all sorts of robots were on display. Right now, right here. Quickly, tell Lord Ral that Tony Stark must come here in his armor. Why? He won't agree. Just tell him I can't handle this by myself. Unless he wants the expo to become ruins. Qin Wuying quickly instructed Lucy to call Ral Stark and Tony Stark in turn. On stage, Hammer continued his performance. And then, to everyone, we present our first military combat mech. At the very front of the main stage, a small platform rises from below. On the platform is the war machine controlled by Rhodes. This was its first public appearance, which immediately ignited the atmosphere at the scene. Rod excitedly raised his hands and waved them wildly at the audience. The next segment is a weapons and firepower demonstration. Several airships floated down from the sky, with targets being pulled down by ropes underneath. The ropes are made entirely of special materials, making them incredibly strong. Despite budget cuts, the rope-making department still guaranteed the quality. War machines raised the light machine guns and Gatling guns on their shoulders. Then he pointed the gun at the unfortunate audience members below the stage. Hey! What are you doing? Hammer stepped forward, wanting to see if Rhodes had lost his mind. Bang! War Machine punched Hammer several meters away. Oh no! Mr. Qin! My system has been hacked. Qin Wuying slapped his forehead. As expected, what was bound to happen would happen. Seeing the war machine out of control, Hammer ignored the pain and pulled the control terminal out of his pocket. Hammer, stop! But it was too late, the military robot's single red eye came to life. Immediately afterwards, Hammer's terminal screen was filled with the words malfunction. Malfunction. Air Force robots take off directly and drop missiles to the ground from the air. The Army robots then began indiscriminately firing at the scene. Navy robots, together with Marines, precisely destroy infrastructure. Oh no, Mr. Qin, we don't have time to evacuate. What do we do? A security department member rushed to the back office to report, faster than he had ever done in his life. However, he couldn't see where Commander Qin Wuying was at all. Of course he couldn't see it, because Qin Wuying was currently in the sky right in the center of the venue. Everyone's looking at me, I have something to announce. After amplifying his voice with magic, Qin Wuying's voice immediately attracted everyone's attention. Once you're outside, get away from the expo as quickly as possible. As Qin Wuying spoke, he unfolded a huge square magic array under his feet. The magic circle emitted a dim, pale blue light. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Countless tiny blue beams of light shot out from it, and each beam extended into countless branches. These lights automatically connect to the chest of each viewer. Exchange. The moment the command was given, the heavens and earth trembled. All the marked spectators briefly left the ground and floated up within half a second. Then a flash of blue light appeared in the air. The expo, which had been bustling just moments before, was now eerily silent and deserted. When everyone opened their eyes from the light, they found that they had all appeared in a large park on the outskirts of the city. Are you all right? What happened? Lucy searched for Qin without success, then ran all the way until she finally found him, panting heavily. Qin Wuying collapsed into Lucy's arms. The spell he just used had temporarily exhausted all his strength. Are you trying to take advantage of me? Although she said that, Lucy still gently stroked Qin Wuying's hair with heartache. With the innocent civilians gone, this place can be used as a battlefield for a major battle. I also want to ask, what happened here? An Air Force robot landed with a boom next to Lucy and Qin Wuying. Ivan Vanko's voice came from the robot. It's all your fault, now nobody watches my shows. Does such a poorly designed scheme even need an audience? Qin Wuying raised an eyebrow, her face full of mockery. You only have a few seconds left to be stubborn before you die. Tell me, how did you manage that? Ivan controlled the robot, aiming simultaneously at Lucy and Qin Wuying's hearts. Have you ever heard of the Flying Thunder God technique? Although he learned the spell object transposition a long time ago, the Book of Speth has not been updated. Qin Wuying guessed that this time it would have to be used in actual combat. Using the concept of Flying Thunder God, he transferred everyone in the venue to a safe area in one go. This is a task that only he can complete. I'm just a little tired. Alright, it's time for you to get going. In hell, watch how I destroy this place. The robot's field of vision displayed a target-locked message. Lucy hugged Qin Wuying tightly, shielding him with her body. Buzzing. Qin Wuying could clearly hear the missile spinning, about to leave the barrel. Boom. The robot, which was about to launch, was suddenly blasted away by a laser from the side and turned into a pile of scrap metal in mid-air. Chapter 35 First Clues. Just as Yvonne controlled the robot to fire, Tony Stark also arrived at the battlefield. I'll take her to a safe place first. After resting for a while, Qin Wuying composed himself and spoke to Tony. What about him? Iron Man pointed to the stage. At this moment, Colonel Rhodes was still vying with Ivan's system for control of the armor. His animated gestures resembled those of an ancient shaman. If all goes well, SHIELD will be here soon, and they will help. Qin Wuying gathered his magical power while explaining to Tony. His power comes directly from the Infinity Stones, not through contracts or borrowing, so he recovers very quickly. Then, through the portal, Qin Wuying sent Lucy back to her office in the company. Then he turned his gaze toward Rhodes. Qin Wuying pulled out a long magic rope from his hand and first whipped the war machine to the ground. Release your hand, and the rope will automatically bind the other person tightly. On the other side, Tony, who has already created a new elemental core, has now been further enhanced in combat power. With just a flick of a laser, one can shoot down those out-of-control robots one by one. As the actionable red dots on the screen disappeared one by one, Ivan's face turned as green as the dim light emitted by the system. All that effort to make these things is completely useless. Moreover, the original plan to hack into the war machine's system was not entirely successful. Ivan turned his head, his eyes fixed on a device that resembled a robot's standard design. The kind you can wear. Stark's son, I will kill you with my own hands. Achoo. Tony rubbed his nose. Is someone yelling at me? The expo was filled with the smell of gunpowder, and many charred robot fragments were scattered around. Of the dozens of military combat robots that Hammer brought, fewer than 5 are still operational. If that's the case, the chaos will be quelled soon. However, Ivan Vanko won't let Tony Stark have his way. Attention, you two, an unidentified flying object is rapidly approaching you. The Stark Security Department personnel noticed the radar anomaly and immediately reported it to Qin Wuying and Tony. In addition, came the voice of SHIELD agent Barton Clint over the communication. I've brought your friends back. The war machine system was finally free of intrusion warnings, and only clean information was displayed. Upon seeing this, Qin Wuying pulled back the magic rope. If Iron Man alone is needed to deal with the second phase of Whiplash, he probably won't be enough. Moreover, many things in the universe are in chaos. There's always the possibility of some inexplicable accident disrupting the normal process. Come on, my friend. I can't do it alone. Seeing that Rhodey had regained control of the war machine, Tony quickly went to help him up. Hey? What's this? Just as the group relaxed their guard slightly, several blood-red magical attacks flew in from a distance. Qin Wuying immediately deployed her shield to block the attack. After the first wave ended, a second wave followed, and then a third wave. Amidst the dense flow of energy, Ivan arrived on the battlefield in his bulky and oversized armor. You guys go fight outside, I'll handle things here, Qin Wuying shouted. A portal appeared behind Whiplash, accompanied by a powerful gust of wind. It instantly sucked Iron Man, War Machine, and Whiplash away. As soon as the portal closed, more than a dozen mages dressed in black robes, their faces hidden, flew in from all directions. These people formed a circle, trapping Qin Wuying right in the middle. Their signature red magic makes it instantly recognizable. They were all believers in dark magic. Or to put it another way, they are followers of Dormammu. Unsure of their opponent's strength, neither Qin Wuying nor the dark mages dared to make any rash moves. Until one of them gives the order. We outnumber the enemy by 15 to 1, the advantage is on our side. Charge! Each of these guys clasped their hands together, aiming them at Qin Wuying. Burn him! 15 streams of flame, imbued with magical power, shot out and burned towards the center. Temperatures reaching hundreds of degrees can incinerate any living organism. Therefore, when the ritual ended, there was nothing left in Qin Wuying's original spot. The black-robed mages naturally assumed that it had been burned to ashes. Your skills are a bit lacking. Qin Wuying had somehow flown into the air, looking down at them who were single-mindedly setting the fire. The man in the black robe kept setting the fire for 2 minutes, and he watched from above for 2 minutes. It's a pity he doesn't have the ability to copy spells, otherwise this would be great for grilling. Will it burn too quickly? Burn him up there. No. He's to the west. Burn him. There's no one there. Isn't that to the north? Hey, don't burn me. As Qin Wuying used his abilities to travel around, the dark mages were thrown into disarray. Some were so panicked that they accidentally burned their companions. It's no use, Qin Wuying shook his head, you guys can't even see me. The enemy has been given ample time, now it's his turn to counterattack. He suddenly burst out of the ground and took down 3 people with a sweeping leg kick. Open a small portal to transfer the enemy's flames behind them. He teleports continuously, unleashing a 5A level combo from multiple directions, punching and kicking. Finally, 3 unlucky guys who hadn't been knocked unconscious were left, and the divine power was used to demonstrate their tolerance for mistakes. Who exactly are you? The 3 black-robed mages trembled as they looked at Qin Wuying, who was right in front of them, but they couldn't hit him no matter what they did. Who are you? You don't even know me, yet you're here to cause trouble. Having said that, Qin Wuying drew his energy sword from his palm, preparing to engage in a few more close-quarters combat exchanges. Now, ordinary enemies are just small fry to him. It would be nice to use it as a training stake. However, naturally, the enemy will not sit idly by and wait to be killed. Seeing Qin Wuying take out his weapon, they also set up their magic array, preparing for a final struggle. Boom! An enormous, bloody hand crawled out from it. Although it is made entirely of magical energy, it still makes people a little sanity-dropping. Qin Wuying swung his sword with effortless ease, slicing the giant hand into small pieces in just a few strokes. So-called dark energy is nothing more than this. If that's all there is to it, then this is the end for you. Next, one more teleport and one more attack will suffice. However, Qin Wuying suddenly felt a strange heaviness under her feet. It was like being trapped in a chain with a lead ball attached, no matter how hard you tried, you couldn't lift it. No matter how I try, my feet just won't budge. Suddenly, he was unable to activate his ability to teleport. Chapter 36 Caecilius. What the hell? Qin Wuying tried again and again to drag his heavy legs. However, just like sinking into a quagmire, the harder you try, the deeper you sink. Ha 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 ha, the Venerable One has arrived. You can just wait to die. Although the attack failed, the 3 surviving dark mages revealed a sickly smile. Venerable One, what Venerable One? If the Ancient One were to come, shouldn't they be the ones running away and suffering the consequences? Qin Wuying looked up, filled with doubt. A tall, slender man with heavy eyeshadow and an artistic hairstyle stood before me. The man's calm expression could not conceal the certain longing in his eyes. You seem to be special. The man's tone was relaxed and carefree, as if he were commenting on a painting. Upon seeing the man, the 3 men instantly became extremely respectful. Your Excellency, welcome. Hey? Qin Wuying immediately sensed something was wrong. The current Sorcerer Supreme is the Ancient One, so where did they find this impostor? Unless he is Caecilius. Qin Wuying squeezed out the name through gritted teeth. As a gifted mage, Caecilius has been the focus of attention since he entered Camartage. Modu even took him in as his disciple and nurtured him with great care. But what happened? This guy came into contact with dark magic and never came back. Humph, just like master, like disciple. Don't compare me to that stubborn old man who doesn't understand progress. Alright, although I think you're both equally bad. Qin Wuying let out a cold laugh, which seemed to anger the other party, causing Caecilius to roar. They're really 2 extremists. Mordo was obsessed with conservative and traditional things, while Caecilius always sought to break the mold. What I hate most is this kind of binary opposition. Humans are greedy creatures, they always want more. Caecilius patted the dust off Qin Wuying's shoulder and began his sermon. For so long, we have longed for eternal life, yet we did not know that the answer was right before our eyes. Needless to say, he was referring to dark energy. You think the seemingly righteous Ancient One is actually? I know she draws energy from the dark space to prolong her life. How did you know? Cassilis was very surprised to hear Qin Wuying steal his lines. He thought it was a secret only he knew. As it turns out, someone who hadn't spent many days in Camartage also knew the inside story. Cassilis secretly pondered that perhaps he could recruit Qin Wuying to his side, which would greatly enhance his fighting strength. Since that's the case, you must hate her a lot too, right? Why should I hate her? Qin Wuying feigned indifference, further provoking Cassilis's emotions. After all, she kept her immortality a secret from us. While we are destined to face death. So what? What can be done? Qin Wuying's completely unreasonable reply made Cassilis extremely anxious. It seems that only by letting Qin Wuying taste the sweetness of dark magic can we persuade him. Cassilis, as if performing magic, gently shook his hands and skillfully moved his fingers. Two thin, long strands of energy, like silk threads, extended into Qin Wuying's two ears respectively. Instantly, the life force brought by the dark energy surged into his brain. Oh, how indescribably wonderful this is! With his eyes tightly closed, Cassilis did everything he could to transmit information to Qin Wuying. Those messages were full of all sorts of temptations. Now do you understand its benefits to humanity? There was no response. Cassilis realized something was wrong and opened his eyes to find no one in front of him. I'm here. A faint voice sounded behind him. Qin Wuying looked at Cassilis, who was still completely unaware of the deception, with an expression that said, "You've finally fallen for it. My prison formation, what are you doing? When you transmit dark energy, I figure out its incantation and spell, and easily break it." This startled Cassilis, who retreated several steps. As one of the top sorcerer students under the Ancient One and Mordo, he considers himself a genius that comes along only once in a century. How could someone break his magic circle in just a few minutes? It's unbelievable, unbelievable to the point of being maddening. Just who are you? You're not worthy to know. In the blink of an eye that Cassilis was pondering, the abdomens of all three dark mages were pierced by azure energy swords. Actually, melee mages are pretty fun, right? Turning his head, he saw the deaths of his three disciples and Cassilis shook his head. Before he arrived, he had somewhat underestimated Qin Wuying's fighting strength. He was convinced that as long as he could restrict the opponent's movements, spatial abilities would be rendered useless. He even fantasized about turning Qin Wuying against him. As a result, the guy surnamed Qin remained completely unmoved. Now, Cassilis is completely indifferent to the death of his disciple. Because even more troublesome and difficult obstacles lie ahead. If he cannot resolve the major threat posed by Qin Wuying, his grand undertaking will likely face even greater difficulties. Have you thought it through? Next time we meet, I will kill you. You're welcome to try, but remember to bring 100 men. They won't be enough for me to kill. Qin Wuying was not afraid of the other party's threat at all, and instead responded with a smile. Once the leader of the Dark Mages is dealt with, we'll turn around and make sure that evil Mordo gets his comeuppance. Seeing that there was nothing more to say, Cassilis created a cloud of black smoke around himself. He then slowly retreated, immersing his entire body in the smoke. Even the retreat was so fancy. Qin Wuying shrugged, preparing to withdraw his magic power and go home first. Wait, is there something important I forgot? He quickly opened the portal and jumped to the other side. On a babbling brook stood three men in armor. Tony Stark, Rod, and Yvonne Van Kirk. The whip stands in the very center, lashing out with one whip to the left and one to the right, preventing the other two from getting close. Iron Man and War Machine's lasers were always unable to break through Whiplash's defenses. Now, Whiplash had come up with a brilliant idea. With a powerful swing, he bound Iron Man and War Machine together, then turned the power up to maximum. The two people were immediately struck by a powerful electric current, screaming in pain. Seeing their clumsy and dull appearance, Qin Wuying couldn't help but rub his temples in exasperation. Couldn't my teammates be a little smarter and more decisive? All right, you two idiots, now listen to my instructions, understand? Chapter 37, Is there a tutorial on how to avoid working overtime? Squatting on the artificial hill near the stream, Qin Wuying casually tossed some pebbles into the water, skipping them a few times. From now on, you two idiots, listen to my orders, okay? Looking at Iron Man and War Machine, who were unable to resolve the battle for a long time, he couldn't help but feel a little annoyed. Okay, you tell me what to do, Tony replied through the communication terminal. First, extend your hands and aim at the launcher in the other person's palm. Are you crazy? Even being beaten to death is better than suicide. Rhodes was having some difficulty breathing inside his armor, but he was still relatively conscious. Seeing that the other party was not listening to him, Qin Wuying opened a portal and prepared to leave the scene. Dude, can't you stop being so rebellious? Tony quickly stopped Rhodes, signaling Qin Wuying to continue. Once you've aligned, all you need to do is fire lasers at each other. So you really do want to kill us, don't you? Despite having expressed his support just moments before, Tony couldn't help but start complaining now. But right now, it seems there's no better way. Because if it had dragged on for another minute or two, the outer shells of Iron Man and War Machine would undoubtedly have been burned to ashes. Tony raised his hand and said to Rhodes, "Listen, the power needs to be set to the same. You don't need to tell me that, I don't think I'm stupid. Are you aiming correctly? Hurry up. That's it, you playboy, I'll beat you to death." In an instant, beams of 150% power were fired from the palms of Iron Man and War Machine. The two lasers exploded instantly in midair upon contact. Boom! The explosion generated an incredibly powerful shockwave. Iron Man on the left is leaning straight back. The War Machine on the right, because its armor wasn't as advanced, spun several times in the air. The whip in the middle suffered the most damage and was thrown away in the blink of an eye. Ivan Vanko's head slammed heavily against a large rock, and blood gushed out. Beep beep, the scanned object shows no signs of life. After conducting intelligent analysis, Jarvis concluded that Ivan was dead. Do you even need to tell me? Anyone with eyes can see that. But Qin Wuying was too lazy to say another word. What's wrong with the people in this universe? If he has to do everything himself, what kind of timeline repair is that? Let's just say he's here to be God. And this isn't even the end of Iron Man's mission. Can you two get home by yourselves? Looking at the two men lying on the ground, Qin Wuying shook his head. Rod responded with a thumbs up. Hey! Are you all right? That's strange. Qin Wuying thought he heard Lucy Stark's voice. Didn't we already send her back? Qin Wuying looked into the distance and saw Lucy running towards them with small, quick steps. He quickly went to greet them. At that very moment, face to face, the two embraced tightly. I'm sorry, I'm really worried. Qin Wuying didn't speak, but picked the other person up and then flew into the sky. There's a fairly tall building right next to it. He gently put Lucy down, and together they stood on the rooftop, looking at the lights of countless homes. Without you, none of these problems could have been solved. Lucy wrapped her arms around Qin Wuying's waist, looking at him with dreamy eyes. Yes, I know. That's why I came. Qin Wuying responded positively to the girl's requests. It was a gradual approach, a mingling of warm breaths exhaled. Lips and teeth touched, a sweet sensation lingered. They were reluctant to part with each other for a long time. Hey, when are you guys going to finish? What? Lucy and Qin Wuying were both startled and turned around. To be honest, you two look like two seals fighting over grapes. As Rhodes spoke, he adjusted the parameters of his armor. Good grief, where did you come from? You've ruined Tony and Pepper's good time together. Now I, Qin Wuying, have finally found some free time to rest with my new girlfriend. That's a good rhetorical device, but don't use it next time. Let's go. Qin Wuying rolled her eyes at Luode, unable to understand why someone would be such a spoilsport. Rhodes laughed a few times, then activated his armor and flew away with a whoosh. Actually, I think seals are quite cute. Lucy, acting coquettishly, threw herself into Qin Wuying's arms. Okay, let's take a short flight. Qin Wuying did not choose the teleportation portal, but instead flew slowly back to the group's building with Lucy. Sitting on a park bench by the entrance, he recalled his first day here. Back then, I had no superpowers, went through many hardships, and was very down on my luck. But now, he is the head of security at Stark Industries. The chairman's biological daughter is his girlfriend. At the same time, he was also a senior agent of SHIELD, temporarily. Alright, now it's time to go home and rest. Beep beep beep. SHIELD headquarters is calling Pangolin. Pangolin received, please proceed to headquarters. Qin, hello. Long time no see. Upon hearing Nick Fury's voice, Qin Wuying immediately realized that he must have another difficult mission. We just met not long ago, haven't we? I don't want to hear what you have to say. Hey? Don't rush. Before Fury could explain his intentions, Qin Wuying hung up the call. Now he has enough leverage to say no to anyone. However, once he got home, the shameless Nick Fury still sent a text message. The gist of the story is that in South America, SHIELD discovered a fugitive who had been on the run for a long time. Because this person is too dangerous, only highly skilled personnel can bring him back. Naturally, SHIELD thought of Qin Wuying. Humph, you want me, a temporary worker, to do your work for free again? No way. Qin Wuying moved her fingers and made her two requests in her reply. First, Nick Fury wanted to exchange the Avengers' classified research data. Second, he must be appointed as the deputy director of SHIELD. How do you know about the Avengers' classified information? I already told you I can read minds, I know what you're thinking. Okay, but not the deputy director. Then let's not talk about it. After ending the chat, Qin Wuying collapsed onto the bed. When can I spend the night with Lucy? At that moment, he wasn't thinking about anything at all, his mind was completely occupied by his girlfriend. However, just as Qin Wuying was about to fall asleep, the phone rang again. Who is it this time? You fucking bastard, you can't let people sleep, can you? I'll F you. He answered the phone angrily and launched into a tirade of abuse. Boss, don't be angry, we have a new situation on our end. It was the voice of a Stark Security Department employee. Qin Wuying glanced at the calendar, tomorrow was Sunday. Lord Ral said that the exposition will continue tomorrow. I see. As Qin Wuying lay in bed, she had a bad feeling. Chapter 38 The Aftermath of the Expo. After some adjustments and reconstruction, the Stark Expo continued. Given the incident a few days ago, security measures have been raised to a whole new level. Security personnel, police officers and SHIELD agents can be seen everywhere. Last time Hammer's main act was interrupted, and this time he has no show. Let me out. You bastards. Stark Industries will destroy the world. Yes, as you can see, our great industrialist and entrepreneur, Mr. Hammer. Right now, he's in a SHIELD prison trying to clear his name. Agents found a series of pieces of evidence at his company and residence. This evidence points to crimes such as manufacturing illegal weapons and helping prisoners escape. However, Mr. Hammer still maintains that the Stark family is the world's largest criminal organization. Of course, what he thinks is irrelevant. Just to be on the safe side, let's have some singing and dancing to liven things up. This is what Lars Stark instructed Qin Wuying. Therefore, apart from some regular technology and equipment booths, there were no other arrangements on the main stage. The atmosphere at night was relaxed and pleasant. Qin Wuying was still wearing a casual suit, but it was much more expensive than before. He moved between different areas, always on guard against enemies who might be lurking in the shadows. If only peace could always be like this. You're not serious, are you? Rod appeared out of nowhere and made this remark. This immediately alerted Qin Wuying. In a world where even a casual remark can be considered a jinx. Yaya, help! Suddenly, shouts came from not far away, and the crowd became agitated. This is exactly the same situation as a few days ago. Just what I feared has come to pass. You go and evacuate and protect the crowd, don't come with me. Qin Wuying stopped Rhodes, who was preparing to combine his armor, from following him. It's better to face the challenge alone. Judging from the last situation, Rhodes' presence would only hold him back. It would be better to let him do some more practical work. In just a few seconds, Qin Wuying teleported to the scene. Many tourists were trapped by the magic circle beneath their feet and unable to escape. Surprisingly, there were even children as young as 7 or 8 among them. What kind of skill is it to bully kids? All of you, get out here. Qin Wuying immediately deactivated the magic array, allowing everyone to escape, while simultaneously calling out to the enemy. One of the problems he couldn't figure out last time has resurfaced. Why did Cassilis want to disrupt the Stark Expo? What is the connection between this and magic? Several dark mages, dressed in black robes, jumped out from various places. However, their target was not Qin Wuying, who was already in a fighting stance. All the dark mages simultaneously cast spells, imprisoning the panicked tourists while attacking the lighting at the scene. Although Qin Wuying immediately began to kill indiscriminately. But a few minutes later, the scene was still a mess. Die! 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 After realizing that the dark mage couldn't be killed in one strike, Qin Wuying landed several more blows. Then he looked up and saw a little boy not far ahead, who seemed to have gotten separated from his parents. Unfortunately, there was a dark mage in front of the boy. The dark mage had already gathered a magic orb in his hand, and in an instant, he launched it. The little boy didn't flinch, but instead imitated Iron Man by extending his right hand. Oh no! I have to go and block him. But the next second, a yellow and black figure descended from the sky and stood beside the boy. Iron Man? No, that's not right. Unlike Tony Stark, this suit of armor features the same color scheme as Bumblebee from Transformers. Bumblebee instantly unleashed a powerful laser from its palm, piercing straight through the dark mage's chest. The 2 suits of armor weren't even finished, and now a third one has appeared. Qin Wuying looked at Rhodes on the other side. Although Qin Wuying couldn't see Rhodes' expression through the armor, he was certain that Rhodes was also dumbfounded. You've done a good job, child. Now go on, leave this to us. The user of the yellow and black armor patted the little boy's head and signaled to the security personnel to take the child away. Qin Wuying felt that the voice sounded familiar, but she couldn't quite put her finger on why she heard it often. Do you know him? Instantly teleporting to Rhodes' side, Qin Wuying nudged him with his elbow. I don't know, it's the first time I've seen it. Sigh, you're really useless. Patting Rhodes on the shoulder, Qin Wuying flew to the mysterious man's side again. Hello. Please state your identity. The saying goes, courtesy before force, meaning you should always ask questions and go through the proper procedures first. However, the mysterious man ignored him completely and continued fighting the dark mage. Qin Wuying observed from the side for a few minutes. Whether in terms of speed, power, or defensive attributes, this guy is a whole level above the original Iron Man. Is he really a genius? But in the field of manufacturing cores and armor, is there anyone more professional than Tony Stark? If not, then what's with the bumblebee armor in front of us? Get out of the way, or I'll bomb you too. While he was still in a daze, Qin Wuying realized that he was standing between the mysterious man and a dark mage. They launched their attacks almost simultaneously. A laser beam came from the left, and a magical attack came from the right. Kamui. Qin Wuying's body instantly became ethereal, rendering him unselectable. The two attacks passed through each other without having any effect on him. Next, the dark mage should be hit by a laser, leaving a hole in his chest just like his companions. Whoosh! The dark mage was suddenly caught off guard and killed by a specially made bullet from behind. Why are people still stealing kills? Qin Wuying looked closely and realized it was Iron Man, Tony Stark. No matter who you are, you're a fake. Tony's tone sounded somewhat angry, clearly indicating that he was not happy about the technology leak. First there was Ivan Vanko, and now this mysterious man. It seems like any villain could come along and possess Tony Stark's skills. This makes him not unique at all. Tony Stark hates nothing more than being unoriginal. Iron Man hates nothing more than not being unique. As Iron Man, he must be the most unique being in the world. He has to be the center of attention, a star that everyone is watching. That's right, I'm the imposter. The other party didn't try to hide it at all and readily admitted it. This kind of social interaction is truly honest. It's just that I'm stronger than you, and that's always been the case. What does always mean? Upon hearing the mysterious man's words, Tony couldn't help but frown. After carefully recalling my student days, I realized that no one could compare to me. Still standing there in a daze. Let me shatter your arrogance. Suddenly, the boot thrusters of the mysterious man activated, propelling him toward Iron Man at an extremely high speed. Chapter 39 I am the only one. I didn't do anything to you, what's going on? Iron Man instinctively raised his hands and used his armor to block the first wave of attacks. However, after the bumblebee armor's attack was stopped, it showed no signs of retreating. Buzz! White steam billowed from the outside of Bumblebee's elbows. Then, like a young boxer, he threw punches with both hands at an extremely fast speed. Iron Man was unable to withstand the onslaught and could only retreat step by step. Upon seeing this, Qin Wuying immediately activated her magic to move Iron Man to a more distant location. Perhaps widening the gap will increase our chances of winning. Alright, you lunatic, try this. Tony Stark clasped his hands together and fired a tiny laser beam from between his fingers. Despite its small size, it is actually incredibly powerful. Its extremely high pressure and penetrating power can penetrate most of the world's armor. This is a hidden ultimate move that has never been used before. However, the most unexpected thing happened. The bumblebee armor also clasped its hands together and launched the exact same attack as Tony. Do you think you're the only one who knows these things, young man? The two lasers collided, even briefly distorting the air around them at the time of the explosion. This left Rhodes, who was standing nearby, dumbfounded. In comparison, the war machine was utterly inadequate in their presence. What, are you jealous? Qin Wuying patted Loda on the shoulder, one day you will be just as important as them. After saying that, the Space Master jumped up and lightly leaped into the air. From above, the battle appears to be one-sided. The bumblebee armor constantly changed positions, launching various forms of laser attacks. Iron Man, on the other hand, could only focus on figuring out how to defend himself from different directions. If this is all you're capable of, then the future of the group should never be entrusted to you. After a series of small missile bombardments, the bumblebee armor suddenly accelerated and circled around to Tony's side. Beep beep. Golden electricity shot towards Iron Man in coils. The sequence of actions was so fast that Tony didn't have time to react. Call out. Another teleportation. Qin Wuying teleported Tony to the side from a distance. Thanks, buddy. Otherwise I would have definitely been electrocuted. Don't thank me yet, let's dodge the next attack first. Qin Wuying replied coldly. Iron Man looked up, only to have the opponent's fist, the size of a sandbag, suddenly strike his face. Then came two heavy punches. One punch landed on his face, the other a solid uppercut. Tony, who had taken the attack, was thrown backwards. Damn it, I'm not one to be trifled with. You've really messed with me. Tony Stark got up from the ground, his expression filled with rage through his helmet. Just then, Qin Wuying suddenly thought of a good way to turn the tide of the battle. Hey, Rod, you should start a live stream right now. What's going on? You still have the mind to joke around? Hurry up, stop talking nonsense, make it a national live broadcast. Rod smiled helplessly, then took out his phone and silently clicked start. Soon, the live stream title, Shocking. Iron Man did this at the expo, attracted countless viewers. Qin Wuying nodded in satisfaction, then shouted loudly at Tony. I've started a live stream for you, don't mention it. Iron Man suddenly looked up. What? Are you really going to put him in the shot at a time like this? This is a very disadvantageous battle. It's simply damaging to one's perfect image. Thinking about this, Tony was filled with a strange renewed energy. He immediately ordered Jarvis to take over the system and initiate a remote call. Within seconds, 7 or 8 unidentified bright spots appeared on everyone's radar. Sonic booms could be heard intermittently in the sky. Thump. Thump thump thump. Thump 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 thump. Behind Iron Man, a row of AI-controlled suits descended rapidly. Sorry, there's no rule against group fights. At Tony's command, the armors flew forward and unleashed a barrage of machine gun fire on the Bumblebee armor. As Bumblebee armor dodged left and right, it activated the launchers on its shoulders and back. Wait, shoulders and back. This guy's aggression is unusually strong, how could he hide weapons in places like these? Hey 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 ah. The enormous recoil force was almost unbearable for the user of the Bumblebee armor. Several laser beams shot out instantly from the emission ports on the chest, back, shoulders, and legs. Then the power thrusters at the bottom of the boots hummed. The Bumblebee armor instantly spun 720 degrees in place, accompanied by indiscriminate laser barrage. The side that had just held a significant numerical advantage is now back on equal footing. Tony and Rhodey were stunned by the results of their battle. Without a doubt, in terms of combat effectiveness, the opponent's design is far more advanced than anything else. Now, let me remove your defective armor. The Bumblebee armored suit pressed closer to Tony, 5 grappling hooks extending from its fingers. This hook is extremely fine, and looks like it was made specifically for dismantling armor. Wait a minute. Qin Wuying slowly floated down from the sky, blocking the way between Iron Man and Bumblebee's armor. What are you doing? The task I assigned you is finished. Bumblebee armor removed its helmet, looking displeased. Ral Stark. Rod hurriedly shut down the live stream, because showing Ral's face was strictly prohibited. Hey bro, it's you. Tony also took off his helmet. Like Rhodey, his eyes were filled with shock. Ral Stark's serious demeanor suggests that this was neither a joke nor an accident. He had already instructed Qin Wuying to help Tony in this battle. If Tony wins, he will return the company's shares and power to Tony. But now it seems there's no need for that. According to your own rules, whoever wins owns Stark Industries, right? That's right, and I won. Ral stomped on Iron Man's chest, knocking him to the ground. I taught my playboy brother a lesson. Who said you won? Qin Wuying opened his mouth wide, feigning surprise. What do you mean? Qin Wuying then drew an energy sword from his hand with great interest. Are you going to betray me at this time? Ral Stark put his helmet back on, ready to fight. I have never been loyal to you, it was all just wishful thinking on your part. Qin Wuying remained completely relaxed, showing no signs of pressure. All right, I'll only fight in melee and I won't teleport. If you can defeat me, you win. Why did you do this? Isn't that obvious? You can't do anything without me. Indeed, without Qin Wuying's involvement, many crises would have been impossible to resolve. I'm the only one who's qualified. Qin Wuying roared and thrust his sword at Lar Stark. Chapter 40 Welcoming your new boss. Bumblebee armor dodged the attack with a quick movement. You will pay the price for your actions. Qin Wuying showed no fear, then you are too. Larry Stark was taken aback, he couldn't recall ever doing anything to wrong Qin Wuying. However, his very existence is anti-realistic. Because this universe contains a character named Ral Stark who shouldn't exist. Qin Wuying needs to work hard to balance all parties and push the timeline in a relatively reasonable direction. It was this moment of hesitation that gave Qin Wuying the opportunity. In the blink of an eye, the energy sword, emitting a pale blue icy aura, was placed against the neck of the Bumblebee armor. However, Qin Wuying misunderstood one point. With the protection of the armor, a throat slit might not be a guaranteed kill. This gives the other party more opportunities to make moves. Larry Stark extended his right hand and grasped Qin Wuying's wrist, which was holding the sword. He then turned upside down, kicked his legs hard, and sent Qin Wuying flying more than a meter away. It's surprising that you're so agile at your age. I'm no worse than you, kid. Immediately afterwards, Ral Stark double-clicked the reactor on his chest. Clang! A layer of the armor's outer shell suddenly fell off. The remaining portion looked like a bodysuit, clinging to Ral Stark's body. However, the material of this bodysuit is a special metal. Having shed a significant amount of weight, the bumblebee armor now boasts enhanced speed and agility. You'd better catch it right now. Larry Stark arrived in front of Qin Wuying almost instantly. Qin Wuying could see that the very tip of the opponent's fist was only 2 centimeters away from his nose. However, compared to him, this speed is just a piece of cake. Within a second of Lao throwing a punch, he could only see Qin Wuying's afterimage. That's right, Qin Wuying did not use teleportation. However, having been immersed in the power of the Space Stone for a long time, his physical abilities were no longer what they used to be. Now, even without the aid of magic, he can run very fast. Uncle, watch out behind you. Lar mechanically turned his head and met Qin Wuying's cold gaze. You've already lost. With Qin Wuying's announcement, the energy sword was already pressed against Ral Stark's back. Left with no other option, Lars raised his hands in surrender. Why kill me? I want to die knowing why. Lao slowly closed his eyes and slumped to the ground. However, my daughter will never forgive you. Qin Wuying sheathed his sword and patted Lao on the shoulder. Who said I was going to kill you? Do you have paranoia? Ralph, Tony, and Rod were all dumbfounded. If you weren't going to kill anyone, then your fierce stance earlier was just to scare everyone? Qin Wuying gently helped Lar up. Alright, now I'm the boss of Stark Industries. Who agrees? Who disagrees? Can I say something? At that moment, Rod raised his hand inappropriately, as if he were about to ask the teacher a question. Why decide the position of chairman of the group through such a primitive method as a duel? Upon hearing this, Ral and Tony exchanged bewildered glances. This was originally designed by Ralph as a way to target Tony. As a result, Qin Wuying interfered halfway through, leading to the current situation. Sigh, whatever, Ral shook his head, I'm already tired of it anyway. And so, the group helped each other walk back to Stark Tower. Tony and Ralph were both limping. Attention all employees, this is a company-wide announcement. The next morning, just as everyone was about to start work, a video of Lucy Stark appeared on everyone's phone screens. Lao Stark will transfer his position and shares to Qin Wuying, the Minister of Security, free of charge. The news caused an uproar throughout the entire group. This guy named Qin Wuying hasn't been with the company long, but he's been promoted quite a few times. He first spent a few days on fieldwork at the Ministry of Security, and upon his return, he became the Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Security. Then came the Minister, and then the Chairman of the Board. Some of the male employees who had privately mocked and cursed Qin Wuying are now trembling with fear. However, Qin Wuying is not a particularly vengeful person. He simply reduced these people's salaries and deducted 100% of their overtime pay, requiring them to work overtime without compensation. Okay, I do hold a grudge a little bit. Meanwhile, in the place where Lar used to work, Qin Wuying was sitting there. Oh? You're all high and mighty now? You don't even come looking for me anymore. Lucy pushed the door open and came in. She had the authority to enter this office at any time. Qin Wuying opened his arms and let Lucy sit gently on his lap. Honey, do you know how many procedures I went through? I've never signed so many names in my entire life. That's great, it means you're a big shot. Lucy leaned against Qin Wuying's chest, letting him gently stroke her hair. Doing this always puts her at ease. As Larry Stark's daughter and an important figure in the group, she was always very tense and on edge. But Qin Wuying's appearance changed everything. He not only allowed himself to take risks, but also showed no inferiority or fear because of her status. He was her capable assistant and the one who could protect her. You're really not being polite to my company's new boss. Qin Wuying held Lucy in his arms, gazing at the tall buildings outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, where sunlight streamed in at an angle. After taking control of Stark Industries, he made several decisions. The first step was to bring Tony Stark back into the public eye as CEO. Secondly, let Ral Stark and Lucy Stark take control of the security department. Alright everyone, let's welcome your new boss. At the cocktail party that evening, Qin Wuying raised his glass to the board members. Although some people were very dissatisfied, the die was cast, and all they could do was offer their congratulations. Later, Qin Wuying drank a bit too much and was helped back to his room to rest by Lucy. He held her hand tightly, not wanting her to leave. So she stayed with him until dawn. After settling all the affairs of the Stark group, Qin Wuying still had something very important to do. Look at my outfit, don't I feel great about it? Looking in the mirror, Lucy was adjusting Qin Wuying's clothes. It was a classic mage outfit. Alright, stop looking around. Looks like you weren't too tired last night. Sigh, I'm still very tired. Qin Wuying joked with Lucy while staring at himself in the mirror. Now he must return to Camartage and discuss the next steps with the Ancient One. Whether it's about Ral or the time travel plan. The journey to Camartage is actually quite short. Stepping through the portal, the entrance to Camartage appeared before you.